She's Aphrodite, the goddess of desire, and for sure she awakened mine. She even made our MC cry from the sheer excess of love she brings. But wait, because she ain't happy, my brother, she's staring at her husband, who is this 5'1" bald-bearded dude, Random Smith called Hephaestus, complaining that he's drinking and didn't bring what she wanted. Then she smiles once at our boy and bro's knees go completely wobbly. Fertility Queen then asks Haijun for a favor. Can you pick up some celestial steel for mommy, my good boy? If she said that to me, I would need to change boxers. And when someone shows you that much love, there's no way to say no. So he picks up his helm of Hades and drives his scooter to another dungeon. But how the hell does someone end up as the god's delivery boy? See, our bro was your typical Uber Eats hardworking but poor as fuck dude. His usual routine was climbing 27 floors because the elevator was broken, ringing the doorbell and getting cursed out for taking too long. He'd think about yelling back at the fat bitch but would just stay silent. Then, the moment he's back on the street, his boss calls, saying the customer from his last order complained that Snorlax even threw everything in the toilet just to file a complaint. Our boy tried to explain, but it was too late. He wasn't getting any new orders for a while. To learn to be more responsible. Problem is, our bro's rent is due next week, but was at that moment and right in front of a dungeon portal. His cell phone suddenly glowed with a system message. You have a new delivery request. The screen looks different from anything he's seen before, so he taps it out of curiosity. A bright flash bursts from the phone, and when he opens his eyes, he's in a place that looks like heaven. He panics, wondering if this is a dream or if some mystical being finally chose him. Nothing has even happened yet, but he's already tearing up, thinking his delivery boy life is finally over. Then he notices the phone still showing a delivery order, along with a map and instructions to pick up nectar. Since he has nothing else to do, he accepts it. The moment he taps the screen, the golden gate ahead opens. He gulps and heads in. He rides above the clouds, passing a huge castle. He checks his phone, getting nervous. This is really where the gods live. He enters a palace and stops in front of a giant door, guessing this must be the pickup spot. Nervous, he knocks, thinking if a god answers, maybe this is his chance to become a hunter. Someone opens the door and asks who he is. He sees a blonde girl in white and instantly knows she's a goddess. Stumbling over his words, he says he's here for the order. She steps close and demands to know why a human is in Olympus. When she accuses him of trespassing, he quickly shows his phone and says he's here to pick up a bottle of nectar. She pauses and says this must be Hermes' doing. With a sigh, she tells him to wait while she gets something humans aren't supposed to touch. She returns with the nectar and warns that if her brother doesn't get it on time, he'll be furious. Getting right in his face, she warns him not to drink even a drop, and he quickly agrees. She points at her eyes to say she's watching him, then shuts the door in his face. He gets mad all over again. What even is this? He thought he'd escaped being a delivery boy, but now he's a delivery boy for the gods. Looking at the bottle, he says it just looks like apple juice and thinks about quitting. Then he figures the person getting it must be another god. Since he's already in Olympus, he decides to ask this one to turn him into something special. Fired up, he says this will be his last delivery ever. With that, he starts driving through the lava. A notification says he's approaching. After a mountain of magma, there's a small house. He arrives at the door exhausted because it's hotter than a sauna there and announces that the delivery has arrived. The door suddenly swings open. He's drenched in sweat from the brutal heat inside. A dwarf working at a forge turns around, angry, and asks who came in. Flustered, the protagonist says he's not an intruder, just making a delivery. The dwarf walks toward him, noticing this must be the guy his sister sent. The MC can't believe they're related. Then the dwarf realizes he's not Hermes. His aura rises as he says the boy came there uninvited. The protagonist hurriedly explains that the dwarf's sister told him to bring this. Once the dwarf sees the bottle is still full, he says it's impressive. He didn't take a sip. The boy says he's not a thief and hands it over. The dwarf laughs and calls him honest. A sip of that nectar would have turned him into a god, yet he felt no temptation. At this moment, the protagonist is confused upon hearing this, already thinking that if he had taken a sip he would be a god. Now, he eagerly moves to open the bottle, saying his life as a delivery boy is over. He reaches for the bottle, but the dwarf snatches it, opens it, and before the boy can stop him, he chugs a huge mouthful. Then he tosses the bottle down and says it tastes even better, all at once. The boy is crushed, while the dwarf says he hasn't had nectar that fresh in ages. Introducing himself as him, he asks the boy's name. He says he's Haijun Lee, and he thanks Lee for being so honest. Before Lee can say anything else, the dwarf turns to leave, saying he's refreshed and going back to work. Lee grabs his shoulder and tells him to wait. The protagonist asks what he wants. Lee says he still hasn't been paid. Hephaestus asks if he means the delivery fee, says he should already have it, and walks off laughing. Lee checks the app and a flash blinds him. The system now shows 1,000 points. He wakes up in bed, wondering if it was all a dream. The moment he checked the app, light surrounded him and sent him back to Earth. But now a small system screen is floating in front of him. He complains because he has no clue what these points are for. He had just met a god. What he really wanted was to become the strongest S-rank hunter alive. Then the system gives him a message, saying points can be traded for items in the shop. So he opens it, hoping the points are useful. The shop sells everything from a golden apple for 1,000 points to a motorcycle for 100,000. He gets annoyed because nothing seems useful and everything costs too much. He keeps scrolling, trying to find something that could help in a hunter gate. Somewhat, he starts thinking the whole thing is pointless until something catches his attention. At the bottom, there are 10,001 or about $10 for 1 point. If this is true, just with this delivery, he earned 10,000, as in he decides to touch it. As soon as he taps it, and a $10 bill appears in front of him and drops into his lap, he picks it up and it feels completely real. The system updates showing he now has 999 points. He can't believe it. He stares at the bill, then at the screen, and keeps pressing until money starts raining all over the room. Now the sly look on his face says everything. He throws the cash into the air, thrilled that this is exactly what he needed. Next thing we see, he's happily eating ramen, glowing with joy. He even goes to a deposit machine and tests the money. It works perfectly. He nearly cries, realizing he made around $10,000 from a single delivery. When a woman at the shop asks if things are really that bad, he says it's actually too good. He sits there laughing to himself like a total maniac. While thinking about what to do with the money, he hears the TV talking about a new recruit. The news says a guild is preparing for the Tartarus Gate, the deadliest one of all. The hunter they hired ranked in the top 5 on the hunter exam and has a contract with Hephaestus. Lee remembers that MC is the chubby dwarf who just became the best customer he's ever had. He leaves the restaurant full and satisfied when his phone starts ringing. He already had a feeling this would happen, so he brought his scooter with him. The phone glows, showing a new delivery, and just like before, he gets teleported. When he opens his eyes in Olympus again, he's standing in a huge botanical garden. As he wonders where the pickup spot is, someone calls his name, Hae-Jin Lee. A girl appears and introduces herself as the goddess Demeter. Lee greets her and she says she heard about him from her nephew. He asks who that is, and she says it's Hephaestus. The poor guy thinks someone is messing with him. None of that family looks related. Smiling, she says he clearly never drank the nectar, then asks if she can trust him with a delivery. He says yes right away. For him, it's easy money. He starts imagining some crazy item again. Demeter gathers energy in her hand and makes a lunchbox. He's confused, but she asks him to deliver it to her. Hae-Jin didn't expect something this simple, but at least it should be easy. He says he'll do it, but then she suddenly shivers, and the whole garden rots in a second. He looks around in shock, but she's already walking away and thanking him. He just hopes this delivery won't cause trouble or turn out to be some divine bomb. Still, he puts it on his scooter, figuring a goddess wouldn't send that to her daughter. Then he checks the destination. But before he can focus, a flash sends him back to Earth, leaving him confused. The app shows the delivery really is in Korea. He remembers Demeter said gods can't leave their palaces without a proper reason, and figures this must be one of those cases, so he'll probably meet her daughter there. He's never been this excited for a delivery, already wondering how many points he'll get. When he arrives, he takes off his helmet and says this has to be a joke. The app is telling him to enter the most dangerous dungeon alive, Tartarus, the hunter's graveyard. He tells himself that can't be right. The daughter must be waiting outside the gate. But then the route updates, and the map clearly points deep inside Tartarus. He yells that there's no way he's going in and tries to cancel. But under the 1-hour limit, it says canceling brings divine punishment. A timer appears, 42 minutes left, or he'll turn into a pig with a human mind. He stares in misery, wondering what kind of punishment that is. He should have checked the details sooner, but none of this makes sense. For one thing, there's no way he's getting past the guards. And his crazy brain starts thinking about pork dishes. Right then the system pops up again and says if he needs help, he can check the shop. He knows he barely has any points, so it shouldn't help. He even considers paying hunters to go in for him. But the shop has something for 800 points, a replica of the Kani, a helmet of haze that hides the user for 30 minutes. He calls the limited time offer a scam made to drain his last points. Still, since the other option is becoming a pig, he buys it and swears this is his last job. The helmet appears out of nowhere, and when he reaches for it, it rolls away. What an idiot. Once he puts it on, he has 38 minutes left to finish the delivery. He rides right past the guards who don't notice him at all. They just sneeze, thinking it's the cold wind. He heads for the gate in total fear. This is one of the worst places in the world. But he has no choice. Hae-Jin Lee, a 20-year-old delivery boy with no hunter license, no contract with a mythical being, and no powers at all, somehow pushes forward. He becomes the first person to reach the deepest part of Tartarus. Looking around, he says no one's there. At least he made it in time and won't become a pig. So he starts shouting that the delivery is here. Then from the dark, a 3-headed wolf locks eyes with him. The poor guy freezes, wondering what the hell it is. The beast steps closer, drooling and ready to bite. Powerless, he thinks turning into a pig would have been better. The monster gets right in his face and he's sure this is the end. He used all his points on that stupid helmet and just delivered himself straight to this monster. Then he remembers the helmet had 2 uses. As the beast jumps, he activates it again, but the jaws are already on him. It feels too late until someone orders the beast not to eat anything dirty. The monster suddenly stops. Hae-Jin slowly opens his eyes and realizes he's still alive. He turns and sees a little girl. He can't believe a child is in the deepest part of Tartarus. She walks up calmly, pets the beast, and says this dog doesn't bite. Right away, he notices she looks just like Demeter. He politely says he has a delivery. When someone behind them asks where Persephone went, a pale man appears and says she must have gone to play with Cerberus. Then he notices the MC and asks how a mortal dared enter Hades' underworld. Embarrassed, the protagonist tries to explain, but he's already terrified after realizing who this is. Hades says no human has reached this place in ages, not since Orpheus. An aura wraps around Hedgen's neck and he can't breathe or speak. Hades says Orpheus came to save his dead wife, but this boy came to steal his helmet. The moment he grabs it, he realizes it's only a fake. Persephone tells him they should hear the boy out first, so Hades lets him go, and he drops to the ground, coughing. Hades asks why he entered this place. Fighting for breath, he says he came to make a delivery. Hades asks if it's for him, the god of the underworld. He says no, it was sent by his wife for their daughter. The two look at each other, confused. Hades asks why a delivery boy brought it instead of Hermes. Shaking, he says he doesn't know, that's just what he was told. Persephone recognizes the lunchbox right away. Hades asks if he really said his wife sent it. He says yes, she asked him to bring it to her daughter. Persephone explains it came from her mother-in-law. She lights up, happy it even arrived warm. Hearing that, Hedgen starts wondering if those two are actually a couple. He points at Hades and blurts out that he's gross and way too old for that. Then he slaps a hand over his mouth, realizing he said it out loud. But Hades heard every word and tells him to say that again to the king of the underworld. The MC starts rambling out an apology, shaking the whole time. Then Hades just stares at him and bursts out laughing like an idiot. Hedgen is stunned, and Hades says he never thought a human would be bold enough to insult him. He asks for his name and the boy answers while trembling. Hades says he'll forgive it this one time, but if he slips again, all he has to do is raise a hand, and the energy around him makes the warning very clear. After that, Hades says the payment has been sent, and he can thank his mother-in-law for the meal. At once the window flashes, and this time he gets 10,000 points, plus another 5,000 from Hades. He even gives the helmet back, saying the boy can keep the little toy. Hedgen starts shaking and thanks him with a huge smile. The scene shifts to a man, worn out, standing against a dragon. He gets ready for battle. This is Team 1's captain, the combat hunter Doyon Ha. He lands a string of hits, but the dragon strikes back and claws his chest. Combat type hunter Doyon Ha. He delivers a series of blows to the dragon, but it retaliates with a claw to his chest. Then another fighter attacks from behind with an aura blade, making the dragon react, but the hit connects and the dragon flies up in pain before crashing down, defeated. The swordsman walks over to Doyon and congratulates him. They've finally cleared the first 4 floors of Tartarus. This man is Guildmaster Shangjun Park, ranked 3rd in the world. The whole team starts celebrating. He calls it a great day because their guild has reached Tartarus' deepest zone. Still, everyone is wiped out. Shangjun thanks Doyon and says they did it because of him. Doyon, moved, says he doesn't deserve that much credit. The team hugs and talks about staying together forever. Shangjun tells Eren not to go too hard on the dragon, ranked 17th in the world. She says she gets it. He knows she wants a lot of mana stones, but there's no need to rush. Then she suddenly feels something. Jumping off the dragon, she warns that something fast is coming. The team stares into the dark, knowing they're too exhausted for another fight. Shangjun tells everyone to get ready, and Eren says it's almost here. The leader warns that if things go bad, everyone should run. He'll stay behind and hold the monsters back. But the others get emotional and say they'll fight beside him to the end. He smiles, but Eren cuts in. It's here now. In the distance, they hear an engine, then spot the shape of a motorcycle rider in a helmet. Shangjun just stares, wondering what the hell he's looking at. Calm as ever, Hedgen asks if he can pass through. Seeing the dragon, he says they're amazing, and he's glad they showed up, because the helmet was about to wear off. He gives them a thumbs up and warns them to be careful. There are creatures with dark magic ahead. Then he speeds off on his scooter. The whole guild is too confused to say a word. The next scene talks about the number 150 million. If that were years, you'd be back in the age of dinosaurs, and it's close to Korea's full population. Usually, he gets around 3 per delivery. To reach this much, he'd need 50,000 jobs. But that's exactly how much money he'd get if he exchanged his points now. The guy can't stop grinning. He stared at that number all day. Sure, he was terrified of turning into a pig. He was also almost eaten by a dog, and nearly strangled by the god of the underworld. When he thinks about it, he really suffered for this money. But none of that matters now. He made a fortune. And like any greedy little capitalist, he already wants more. He says from now on, then his stomach growls, and he decides food comes first. Maybe beer and fried chicken. Meanwhile, Shangjun is at a conference. He's exhausted and steps out to speak with the members. After that, he still has to meet the president of the Hunter Association. The man never gets a break. Doyon asks if he mentioned the delivery boy at the conference. He says no. For now, he'd rather keep it quiet since nobody knows where that guy came from. They should have chased that guy and asked questions, but everyone was too tired and too stunned to move. Still, the whole guild is curious. The blonde points out the weird helmet and scooter, saying he might not be that hard to track down. But Shangjun tells them to drop it for now. Their job is clearing dungeons, not hunting some mystery rider. Then he tells the other two they need new weapons, so they'll be heading to the mining dungeon. Doyon starts to complain, but gives in and asks what kind of metal he wants. After thinking a bit, Shangjun says it's called celestial metal. Meanwhile, the MC is enjoying his fried chicken, when his phone suddenly rings. He jumps up right away, not wanting to miss an order from the gods. Even though he's starving, in a flash of light he gets pulled away and ends up in the mountains. Right in front of him is Hephaestus' house again, and that's when he realizes he forgot his scooter and helmet. As he's thinking about that, someone appears behind him. Then a voice calls to the boy, and he turns to see him in tears. Hae-jin asks why he's outside. Still crying, the protagonist says he got kicked out. Hae-jin is baffled and asks what happened. He says he was eating and drinking with his brother Dionysus when someone showed up, called him dear, asked why he was drinking again, and threw them both out, telling them not to come back. Dionysus ran off right away, leaving the little dwarf alone. Hae-jin says he gets it, then asks what he wants delivered. Looking miserable, Hephaestus says anything to eat or drink. Since getting kicked out, he hasn't had a single bite. He even begged his sister, but she didn't have any nectar. Now Hae-jin is his last hope. The MC kind of gets it, but he has no clue what a god is supposed to eat or drink. Lying on the ground, Hephaestus says some meat and alcohol would be perfect. Hae-jin checks his phone and tells him to wait. A flash of light appears while the dwarf stays sprawled on the ground. He starts sniffing the air until Hae-jin returns with the beer and chicken he bought, saying he's happy to share. MC says he has no idea what that is, and the boy explains it's a classic combo in Korea. The dwarf is overjoyed, saying he's never tasted such a refreshing drink before. He even thought the chicken piece looked too small, but the moment he bites it, he says it's the best thing he's ever eaten in his life. Hae-jin starts wondering if this guy is really a god. Then the dwarf promises a big reward and tells him to check his phone. At that moment, the phone rings and he sees Hephaestus sent another 15,000 points. The sneaky guy can't believe he just made 150,000 from delivering chicken. The dwarf even tells him to call anytime he needs something. To him, this dwarf is the sweetest guy in the world, and he almost wants to hug him, until someone walks up. A voice calls out, "Dear," and both of them turn. Hae-jin freezes when she asks why he's drinking again. Seriously, what is this? It's Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty and love. The protagonist is blown away, saying he's never seen anyone this beautiful. He can't understand how she's married to that crying dwarf, and then Hephaestus suddenly drops to his knees. He quickly explains he's only eating there because he got kicked out. She glares at him like that sounds exactly right. The dwarf panics, and Hae-jin thinks he'd better apologize. She then calls Hae-jin by name and introduces herself as Aphrodite. She really is the goddess of love, giving off an incredible charm. She apologizes, and Hae-jin says it's fine, he's only there because he was hired. Hearing that, the dwarf asks if he can deliver something else. He's not sure what to say, but Aphrodite says he seems like an honest boy, not someone driven by greed. He says they can count on him, since he's the god's delivery boy. The dwarf loves hearing that, but honestly, Hae-jin would rather do a job for Aphrodite. Still, the dwarf asks him to get some materials for the forge. The place is in his own city, and what he needs is celestial metal. The next thing we know, he's already on his scooter, wondering if this is the right place. He's standing before another gate, this time the Sure Mines, and his heart starts pounding. He can't believe he's entering another dungeon. As soon as he saw the location, he looked it up and realized it was the mines. He hesitated and told Hephaestus he couldn't do it, because the last dungeon nearly got him killed. The dwarf asked why, and he explained he's not a hunter and can't fight. He only survived before because of a helmet that hid his presence, but now it's broken. Hephaestus says if the helmet's broken, just hand it over and he'll fix it. Excited, he jumps up and says he's the god of blacksmiths. He can repair any mythical item. Hae-jin gets excited too, and now he has the helmet back. It's a repaired replica with a 2-minute limit and 2 uses. He enters the gate again, but inside it feels like a fair, which leaves him confused. He knew this dungeon was popular, but this is way too much. He thought the monsters would be the hard part, but now he realizes the real problem is getting deep enough to find the ore. Meanwhile, Doaim is there casually eating. After driving for 30 minutes, he finally reaches an empty area. The problem is the ground is awful, and his scooter is rattling like crazy. At least he starts spotting minerals in the walls, but he's looking for celestial metal, a red glowing ore. He keeps going, wondering how much farther he has to go. Then he rounds a corner, and a giant skeleton passes right by him. He panics but keeps speeding ahead since he's still invisible. Then his scooter slams into something. A skeleton notices the noise but looks confused because it can't see anything. The bad news is his scooter is pretty much wrecked now. He pauses for a second, then smiles. He's rich enough to buy as many as he wants, so he pushes deeper into the cave until on top of a rock pile, he finally spots the celestial ore. He walks up, takes off his helmet, and grins, saying he finally found it. The problem is getting it out. He yanks from one side, kicks from the other, and finally gives up. So what is he supposed to do now? Then the system helps him out and tells him to check the shop for something useful. As soon as he opens it, he sees a recommended item for 4,700 points. It's an explorer's pickaxe that can mine perfectly, but only once. But for him, 4,700 points means 47 million, and that's insane. He remembers the entrance, rents out pickaxes for 10,000. So he starts to leave, saying there's no way he's spending that kind of money. The problem is, when he looks at his scooter, it's obviously in terrible shape. Knowing it might not survive the trip back, he decides the safer move is to risk it. He spends the 4,700 points, and the pickaxe appears in his hand. Then he tells himself he'll just make Hephaestus pay him back and swings at the oar. The hit lands cleanly, the oar pops free from the rock, and the pickaxe instantly crumbles away. The oar rolls down the pile and he chases after it like an idiot. He picks it up, but it's insanely heavy. After a struggle, he finally gets it onto the scooter, thinking it'd be so much easier if he could just go straight to Olympus. But right then, a stone ogre appears behind him. He doesn't have the helmet on and freezes in fear. The monster roars hard enough to shake the cave. In another area, Doim is fighting skeletons, and when he hears it, he wonders what that was. He feels something rushing out of the darkness and gets ready to fight, only for Hagen to come flying in on his scooter, yelling at him to move. Doim recognizes him as the same guy from Tartarus, but the protagonist speeds past, shouting that he should run if he wants to live. Doim doesn't even get a word out before the guy is gone. Then he hears something behind him. When he turns around, the ogre is charging straight at him. He takes off running, desperately yelling that he wants a ride. The scene cuts to Hagen screaming that he almost died again. Hephaestus says he's impressively fast, but our boy just curses him out for not warning him how dangerous that place was. The dwarf looks confused and says there's nothing there that should risk anyone's life. The protagonist tries to explain that the rock was huge too. The dwarf still looks lost, so he says he'll go get it. Then he brings over the red block. He drops the massive ore on the ground and tells Hephaestus to look at the giant thing he asked for. The dwarf stares in shock and asks what kind of monster that is. The two just look at each other. Hagen tells him to quit joking because that's the celestial metal he wanted. He explains that yes, it is, then lifts the stone and says he's never seen celestial metal this large or this pure. Hagen is confused by that. The dwarf tells him to wait and goes to show him something. He comes back with a tiny stone and says that used to be the biggest piece he had ever seen. Then he tells the protagonist he's even more amazing than he thought and deserves way more than he was promised. He tells Hagen to look, and Hagen is stunned while the dwarf gets all excited over the ore. The delivery was supposed to pay 20,000 points, but he gets another 30,000 because of the ore's size. He's so shocked by the payout it makes him dizzy. It's like getting $500,000. The dwarf says he had to pay extra, because it would have been ridiculous to take one piece and tell him to carry the rest back. Hagen drops to the ground and thanks him with all his heart. The dwarf tells him to stand up, but the boy says he can't. His legs are thanking him too. Later, the news reports on the earthquake at the Surai mines. Sang Jin asks Doyen if he's really okay. He says yes, but warns the mines will be closed for a while. Sang Jin asks what happened, and he says a giant golem showed up, and that same guy from the Tartarus gate appeared again. The weirdest part is that the golems seem to be chasing him. Hearing that, Sang Jin starts thinking about recruiting the protagonist. Doim says he can track him down if needed. He remembers the bike and license plate, and he also got the area recordings. The leader thanks him, saying someone like that would be a huge gain for the guild. He's just glad the guy wasn't hurt, and says he'll take over from here. Doyen lights up, thanks him, and says he'll follow him anywhere, until Sangjin asks if he got any celestial metal. That shuts them both up. Meanwhile, Heijun sees 75,000 points on the screen and grins like an idiot. With $500,000, he can finally think about buying a new house. He's making an insane amount of money, even by top hunter standards. The problem is, he knows luck is the only reason he's still alive, so he starts wondering if the shop has anything useful. He opens it and starts searching, but like always, everything is overpriced and mostly useless. The cheapest weapon is $1 million and they're just replicas, so they probably won't last. For a second, he thinks maybe fighting monsters isn't worth it. Then something grabs his attention. It's a level 1 racing suit that boosts the user's physical ability based on the suit's level. The price is 50,000 points, and he's annoyed the system never recommended something this good. Still, he doesn't know how strong it really is, and 50,000 points is a lot. After thinking it over, he buys it as a work investment. It should let him handle more deliveries. As soon as he buys it, a flash of light appears, and the suit shows up in front of him. Now there's no going back. He's down to 25,000 points, but he's fully geared up. When he puts it on, it feels weird. It's a little tight but also so light it barely feels like he's wearing anything, and it doesn't get hot. He decides to test it. Meanwhile, Doyan is miserable out in the city. He's been trying to find the protagonist, but even with the plate number, he can't get an address. Since the guy hasn't done anything illegal, the police have nothing on him. He yells to himself, wondering how he's supposed to find that bastard. Right then, the protagonist stops nearby and tells him the light is green. Duyon apologizes and steps aside, saying a lot of people seem to ride the same bike. Then he notices the scratches on the side. They match exactly, and so does the license plate. He screams for Haijun to stop, but he's already gone. Duyan tries to chase him, then spots a taxi and jumps in, telling the driver to follow that bike only to get kicked out because the driver asks if he thinks this is a movie. Then the taxi leaves him there. Even so, he keeps going, saying he'll follow that way until the biker stops. After running for quite a while, he finally collapses, out of breath. A woman asks if he's okay, and he says he is. She says she knows him from one of the biggest guilds, but he says she's mistaken. No one from a major guild would be sprawled on the ground like this. He still has no clue where that stupid delivery guy went. Then a scream draws everyone's attention. He gets a bad feeling and moves in slowly. He checks around but doesn't see the bike anywhere. Still, his gut tells him that guy is involved. Some elders warn him to be careful, saying the echo from the peak could trigger an avalanche. He tells them not to worry. He's with a major guild and starts running again. Once again, he's chasing after the exhausted protagonist. Then he glances to the side and spots a rock with a clean hole through it. He says there's no way someone just did that. A B-rank hunter might break a rock, but making a perfect crater like that makes no sense. It has to be magic or divine power. If the biker did it, he has to bring him into the guild no matter what. Back home, Sneaky Hagen is wiped out, still shocked that he made that hole in the rock. For a few minutes, he could even run faster than his bike. Now he's thrilled and feels ready to step into any dungeon. His phone rings again, but this time it's a Chinese instrument instead of a harp. He checks the location, Buxiang. Since it isn't Olympus, it's probably a dungeon. He looks up dungeons in Buxiang, and just like he thought, there's one called Mount Hua. Go. Since the delivery has no time limit, he decides to wait for the suit to recharge first. What he doesn't realize is that someone's following him. The blonde from the guild is watching him. Xiangjun already heard everything. Diane reported. He said that if they spread hunters across the area, they'd find him sooner or later. Xiangjun said that wouldn't work without a picture, but Diane told him to relax. Then he showed him a perfect sketch of the biker thereafter. The leader asks if it's true. The guy seems stronger than he looks. Dayan brings up the rock with the hole in it, something a normal protagonist could never do. Yangwon may be the top guild in Korea right now, but the second biggest black dragon has grown fast in recent years. The problem is, they'll do anything illegal if it helps them gain power. The leader says they can't let a talent like this end up with a guild like that, especially with how shady they've been lately. Dayan says he can be trusted to recruit the guy. The next day, when Haijin reaches Mount Huago, he sees a crowd at the entrance, even though online it looked unpopular. As he gets closer, a man tells him to stop there. Startled, he realizes the guy is actually talking to a little boy behind him. He hears people whispering about the Black Dragon Guild. The protagonist knows they're one of the guilds that like to take over gates. Still, he heads inside since it has nothing to do with him. The moment he enters the dungeon, he gets a message saying he's close to the delivery point. He walks a little farther, and the phone says he's right on top of it, leaving him confused. Then he looks up the mountain and realizes the delivery point is at the top. Remembering the stone golem, he gets nervous. But now he has his suit, so he feels sure he can deal with whatever shows up. He takes off his helmet, ready to move, when someone calls out for the delivery man. A face in the ground is talking to him. Heijin freezes. It's a monkey's head speaking to him. The monkey tells him to relax. Hasn't he ever talked to a monkey before? Not sure what to say, he asks if the monkey placed the order. The monkey says a kid in a winged hat told him that if he wished hard enough, someone would come fulfill the request. The protagonist starts wondering if that winged hat kid is behind everything. The monkey says there is something he wants Heijin to bring him. An MC tells him to name it. The monkey introduces himself as the beautiful Monkey King, or the victorious Buddha. Others call him the great Sun Wukong. Haijin instantly thinks of Goku and steps closer, asking why he's trapped there. Sun Wukong says he got punished for stealing peaches from the Jade Emperor's tree. He only wanted one bite, but the moment he touched them, he was sealed under the mountain. Haijin says he gets it and asks what he needs. Wukong says it's simple. Follow the path behind him and he'll find a pile of trash. A hidden box is there, and he wants it brought back. Heijin checks and sees it's 6 miles away. Since that isn't too far, he says he'll be back soon, and heads off. But the little monkey gives a sly smile. Elsewhere in the forest, some adventurers wonder if they've found the boss of Mount Huago. A giant golem sits there. A girl steps up and tells them not to be scared. She's the master of the Black Dragon Guild, Johan, dangerous enough to carry a presence that rivals Aphrodite's. She knows the Yangon Guild cleared the first 4 levels of Tartarus, but if Black Dragon beats this 8 trigram boss, they might take the top guild spot. She orders everyone to attack, and the blonde behind her tells the tanks to move in. The men hesitate, saying the thing isn't moving. But something feels wrong. The moment one steps forward, the ground caves in and a creature starts to rise. It's so huge it casts a shadow over the whole team. One roar from it makes everyone shake, saying they can't fight something like that. But the blonde warns that anyone who runs will be killed by the guild. The adventurers protest that they can't beat that monster with such trash weapons. Then a redhead yells for everyone to get ready to fight. If they lose focus now, they'll be crushed. The group hesitates, then moves in. The blonde asks the redhead if she really thinks the plan will work. She calmly says she has no idea. In the forest, Hadrian is riding his scooter when an earthquake hits. Even the monsters are running from that direction. Seeing smoke in the distance, he knows it's bad. Even with his suit on cooldown, he decides to check it out. By then, the adventurers are getting crushed. One stomp wipes them out, and the rear line tries to support, but their arrows do nothing. Realizing their attacks aren't working, the redhead spots a mage near the leader. He says he came to register, not to fight, but Shuyu says if everyone survives, it could hurt her guild's reputation. He's left confused, then she punches him out cold, saying they're only here to help her take this place. With the battle too loud for anyone to notice, the others keep pushing forward. The redhead uses a jump skill to launch himself at the golem and lands a clean blow to its head. He shouts that he made an opening and tells everyone to attack, so the team swarms the monster. After a hard fight, it drops to the ground. The team cheers, thinking their attacks are finally working. They celebrate, convinced they'll make it out alive. Then the golem suddenly wakes back up. Its gears heat up, and it starts rising again. Johann looks thrilled. The boss is entering phase 2. Now it seems even bigger and stronger. From the rear, Hadrian watches it all, wondering where the like button is on this video. My friends, if this does well, I'll bring part 2, so hit that little bell. Now then, remember how the last chapter ended, with Hadrian inside the dungeon, after the monkey asked him to fetch some junk. The moment he got there, he hit the like button. Outside though, Du Hyunhem says he was in Suwon yesterday, and now he's heading to Bukchon. The poor guy is searching that hard for Hadrian. He's basically crossing the whole province. When he reaches Sonju Mountain's entrance, nobody is there, which throws him off. Then a chubby guy with glasses calls out to him. Do-hyun asks where he came from, and the guy snaps back, telling him to watch his mouth and say who he is. So Do-hyun gives his name and asks what exactly he plans to do. He's already sure this man isn't from the association, more likely Black Dragon. So he brushes past him and tells him to move. The chubby guy keeps warning him not to go in, but since he can't stop him, Do-hyun enters anyway. That confirms it for him. If they posted guards to keep people out, there has to be a boss inside. He takes off running, saying he needs to warn people, since this place was already abandoned. The real battle against the 8 trigrams begins when the monster enters phase 2. That's when Hyjin arrives. Seeing the giant monster with a laser in its belly, he realizes this is the junk the monkey meant. Even with the suit, he isn't sure he can beat it. Shaking, he wonders what he's supposed to do now. Then he spots a redhead with a group nearby. He quickly recognizes them as Black Dragon Guild members. The ones trying to quit are being dragged back into the fight while begging to leave. Then, weirdly enough, the blonde guy leaps onto the monster's chest with the mage. That leaves Hyjin confused, wondering what he's planning. The Black Dragon member starts throwing the adventurer toward the burning core. The man begs not to be dropped, saying he'll die, but the blonde says it's his own fault for trying to run. Then he lets him fall, but Hyjin rushes in and punches him in the face, calling him a bastard. The Black Dragon leader stares, stunned, wondering who this guy is. How did he drop a B-rank adventurer with one punch? Our boy saves the man like a hero, even catching him in his arms. The adventurer thanks him for saving him, but warns that staying there is dangerous. Hyjin looks around and realizes he's stuck between the boss and the whole Black Dragon Guild. He knows he could just grab the box and run using the chaos as cover, but he can't do that. He tells the man not to worry. He just couldn't watch someone die for nothing. The Black Dragon leader asks why everyone stopped, while Hyjin thinks this whole mess is because of those idiots. His suit only has 2 minutes and 17 seconds left, so he figures he has no choice but to move. The redhead is furious, because she thought they were about to win. The bald guy asks if he should send in the archers, but she tells him no. She explains they first need enough bodies. That's the trick to beating the 8 trigrams. During the shift from phase 1 to phase 2, the boss can't move. If they feed sacrifices to its chest, then the fight gets much easier. Then the bald guy tells her to look. Hyjin has already jumped, high enough to rise above the boss. From up there, he notices a crack in its head, like something can be taken from it. He's sure that's the weak spot, so he throws a punch. It lands square on the monster's head. The leader starts shaking, wondering what that idiot is doing. At this rate, he'll wake the boss, so she orders everyone to stop him. She doesn't care whether he lives or dies. She just wants him stopped. The guild starts firing arrows at the boss. Hyjin's suit is down to 1 minute and 31 seconds. As he keeps punching the ogre's head, he begs it to break already. Then a warning window pops up and his body starts dodging the arrows on its own. He's shocked, wondering why those people are trying to kill him. The bald guy tells the leader this stranger is dodging like a god. He's even avoiding arrows from behind without looking, until one strikes the ogre's eye. The creature shudders and its eye lights up. The bald guy wonders if they'll need everyone just to stop him. Then he orders the front line to charge. Hyjin wonders when this thing will stop. It's covered in arrows like it's wearing a wig. Then the ground under him starts shaking. The captain drops her fan, knowing they're in real trouble now. The creature's eye fully lights up. Phase 2 is complete. Hyjin complains that it's way too hot up there, while everyone below trembles. The golem stomps down with a roar, and one blow wipes out the whole force. The bald guy asks the leader what they should do, but she has no answer. She knows there's nothing left to do. Facing the golem, she's sure they're all about to be burned to ash. But above them, Hyjin is still hammering the monster's forehead with punch after punch. She can't believe he's still alive up there. The problem is, his suit has only 10 seconds left. He keeps punching, and it drops to 8 seconds. At 5 seconds, he begs it to break. Then only 1 second remains. He throws one last punch and blows the creature's head apart. When the smoke clears, Danyan has just arrived, and he can't believe what he's seeing. Looking at the fallen boss, he wonders if this kid really beat it alone. In a way, Danyan feels drawn to Hyjin. They seem to fight in a similar way, but he never expected to find him here. He runs toward Hyjin, saying he has to recruit him into the guild today. Below, the Black Dragon members are still alive, and Zuhan can't believe that loser beat the 8 trigrams by himself. The bald guy asks for orders, and she tells him to seize the boy as soon as the smoke clears. She knows he was strong enough to win, but he must be exhausted now, and she can't let someone who ruined Black Dragon's plan escape. Then an explosion goes off in front of them. It's Duyan, greeting them. The whole guild recognizes him at once. He says he was right to suspect they were behind this, and he's already figured out they plan to use the recruits as sacrifices. Juhan didn't expect him to appear there, so she orders everyone to get ready. Pointing at him, she says he's the target now, and nobody better let their guard down. Juhan is worried there are too many of them, and now he's not sure he can win. What he really wants to know is where Haijin went. Then another guild member approaches her and says they have a problem. She asks what it is. He nervously admits the guy with the helmet has disappeared. Poor Zuhan and Duhan too have no idea what just happened, and she screams in frustration. Naomi is in trouble, stuck alone against all of them. He got dragged into this by accident. Hemao ran off with the helmet because he thought he was going to die. He nearly woke up in Olympus and not because of a delivery. The poor guy wonders why he helped those people when he isn't even a hunter. He tells himself never to make that mistake again. Then something catches his eye. In the distance, he sees Sapingchu Mountains City. He wonders if the dungeon is disappearing because he just killed the boss. Dungeons form when gates go uncleared for a long time, and once that happens, anyone can enter and kill the boss. But it's incredibly hard. Usually only hunters registered with the association can do it. This time though, the one who cleared it was a guy listed as a delivery worker. He just prays this won't cause trouble and wonders again why he got mixed up in it. Then he remembers. Back with the monkey. The monkey says the boy took longer than expected. Crying. Heijun says the request was impossible. The monkey tells him to stop dragging it out and explain. Heijun curses and says the monkey called it junk, but it was a giant ogre that shook the ground with every step and it had a laser that nearly burned him alive. Kang says that's impossible and asks if the 8 trigrams went crazy, since it's normally a peaceful creature that stays still unless someone attacks it. Then the protagonist realizes that if not for Black Dragon, this would have been easy. Now he's fired up and wants to smash their heads in. How dare those bastards mess with his deliveries? The monkey says, from that story, it sounds like he probably didn't get the box, but Heijun says he did. Wukong asks how, and Heijun says he blew the monster's head apart and brought the box to Wukong, asking what was so special about it. The monkey laughs and starts losing it, calling him incredible. Even if Wukong beat that creature in the heavens, its version on Earth could still destroy any human. He asks for the protagonist's name, and Haijun answers. The monkey reaches out his hand and says that today he met Haijun Li. Then something suddenly bursts out of the box, it explodes, and an object shoots into the air. When Haijun opens his eyes, the monkey is holding the staff, saying, Haijun saved him and now he owes him one. Without the boy, he would have been trapped there for years. Haijun recognizes it, the golden staff. Wukong whistles, and a cloud forms under him. He warns Haijun that he needs to leave before the Jade Emperor shows up. Then he flies off, saying they'll meet again someday. Haijun is left speechless. He doesn't mind the monkey leaving, or even skipping payment, but then a sack drops onto his face. Wukong says he isn't cheap. The payment is already there. What's in the sack is just extra for all his hard work. Haijun asks what it is, but the monkey is already gone. A golden light shines from the sack. He opens it wondering if this is really just a bonus. Later, back home, Heijun watches the news. They're covering several accusations against the Black Dragon Guild. He felt relieved knowing those bastards were finally paying for what they did. The man Heijun saved told reporters nobody went in expecting to fight the boss. Then the reporter asked about the helmeted person who rescued everyone. With a smile, the survivor said the guy showed up right when he was about to be burned alive. He took down the 8 trigrams alone, and without him, none of them would have made it out. Haijun smiled, thinking all that effort meant something. When his body moved on its own, he thought he had gone crazy, but it all worked out and nobody learned who he was. Still, the best part was the money. He now had 95,300 points. He got 70,000 from this one delivery, though part of him still felt he deserved more for dealing with that boss. Still, he was satisfied. Cashed out, it was about $700,000 from one job, enough for an amazing apartment. And he also got a reward he never expected, a strand of hair from the great Wukong. Put it in your palm and blow on it and it summons one of Wukong's clones. Heijun was thrilled because it could save him later. Lately, strange monsters kept showing up everywhere. Even if it was only a clone, it was still Wukong. He even made a goofy monkey face while looking at it. To him, this was basically an extra life. Right then, another delivery request came in. He threw on his jacket, put on his helmet, and got ready for the next job. Meanwhile, at a hospital, someone rushed down the hall. It was the guild leader, calling for Doyan. Doyan had clearly been beaten badly by the guild, and looked rough. He asked why the leader was there. Wasn't he supposed to be in Busan today? The leader said he had already handled that and couldn't stay away. Part of the blame for Doyon ending up like this was his, but the boy said it wasn't. He had read the situation wrong and stepped in when he shouldn't have. He should have been more careful around those Black Dragon creeps. Sungjun was furious. They dared attack someone from his guild. He said Ares should have gone with Doyon. Next time he'd crush those guys himself. Then he asked if Doyon was doing okay. Doyon said the doctors told him things looked bad. Sungjun panicked and asked if his life as a hunter was over. But the brat was just messing with him and laughed that he actually fell for it. His arm only had a small fracture, and he'd be back to normal soon. He laughed in the leader's face, asking if he really thought he'd quit over that. Sungjin grabbed his cheek and said maybe today was a good day to retire. Doyen shot back that he'd follow his leader forever. A little later, the leader asked if it was true. The boy had beaten the 8 trigrams alone. Doyen said he saw the guy smash the monster's head apart with one punch. As a martial artist, watching someone win barehanded left a huge impression on him. Then he asked if the team sent to find that boy had any luck. Sungjun said sadly, no. Cameras showed him going into an alley, and then he was gone. High in the sky, Heijun sneezed, thinking it was freezing up there. A while later, he reached Hephaestus's house, which was way too hot. He opened the door and greeted his friend, but the protagonist was too focused to notice, so Heijun sat down, figuring he'd wait until the guy finished working. In that warm room, he started getting sleepy. The heat reminded him of something. It felt like being in his mother's arms. Then Hephaestus snapped him awake and pulled him into a big hug, asking when he got there. Startled, Heijun asked when that damn dwarf showed up. MC said the kid looked worn out today, but the delivery he had was pretty far. Could he handle it? Heijun thought it over. He knew the farther the trip, the better the pay, so he said he'd walk halfway around the world if the money was good. Hephaestus smiled, glad he could count on him, then brought out a staff and said this was the item. He had made it with the materials Heijun brought earlier, and it had to arrive today. Hearing that, Heijun said he'd better get moving. He looked over the staff and asked where it was going. He said the delivery spot was a pyramid. Heijun was stunned and said it might be easier to ship it by plane. Besides, pyramids weren't even part of Greek myth. With a wink, Hephaestus said he had clients outside Olympus. Heijun got annoyed but ran off saying he'd handle it in a few hours. Then the protagonist stopped him saying he forgot one thing. The client was pretty unusual, so he had arranged an assistant for Heijun. The boy was confused, wondering why he'd need help just to make a delivery. Then someone greeted him saying they had come by Cupid's order and introduced themselves as Lucio. Despite the name, Lucio was a woman, or so he thought. He decided not to think too hard about it and sped off on his scooter. The good news was the trip wouldn't take long because Egypt was up in the sky and at least there was no traffic there. But suddenly Lucio screamed that she'd been tricked. She thought she was helping Hephaestus, not riding behind some random human. She kept kicking Heijun in the head and he was already getting irritated. He said she was really annoying for such a tiny fairy. She snapped back that she was actually big for a nymph. An hour earlier when she introduced herself, she proudly said it was an honor to serve MC. Heijun clearly didn't want to bring her, but Hephaestus insisted he'd need her. The MC turned and asked if he really couldn't go alone. Lucio got mad and demanded some respect, while he explained it wasn't about trust. Heijun just didn't know the place they were going, and Lucio did, so she was supposed to help, not slow him down. But on the scooter she just picked her nose and said she didn't want to help this kid. She complained about riding a human scooter, and kept kicking his head, asking how much longer it would take. He ignored her, and she kept yelling for an answer. So he told her that if she stayed quiet, he'd tell Hephaestus she was perfect, and cause no trouble at all. But to Lucio, being useless would ruin her reputation. She had studied her whole life, and fairies like her were treated almost like divine beings. She refused to accept that and kept whining at him until a candy dropped into her mouth. Startled, she asked what he just did. Heijun said she wouldn't stop talking, so he gave her candy to shut her up, and if she stayed quiet the rest of the way, he'd give her more. Lucio had never tasted candy before, and it felt like food from heaven. She warned him not to lie, and he said he always kept his promises. Heijun figured candy was the easiest way to handle a kid. With her finally quiet, they were only 800 meters from the destination. He enjoyed a few seconds of peace before spotting 2 eyes in the mist. He slowed down, but they were already inside thick fog. Annoyed, he asked Lucio why she hadn't warned him. She said it was his fault for stuffing her mouth with candy. So he stopped the scooter and yanked her off while she struggled, telling him to look. Behind them stood a giant sphinx. It said they could pass only if they solved its riddle. Lucio quickly warned that this thing ate anyone who answered wrong. The sphinx was tied to Siphon, the monster that almost destroyed Olympus. This one wasn't on that legendary level, but Heijun wasn't exactly strong either. One look at its size told him his punches wouldn't do much. Then his phone rang, and he just hoped this job paid well. After that, he walked toward it. Lucio asked what he was doing, and Heijun said the obvious. He was going to answer the riddle. She tried to stop him, warning he'd die if he got it wrong. But Heijun felt sure he knew what the Sphinx would ask, since the usual riddle was famous, and in the worst case, he still had Wukong's hair. The Sphinx turned to him and asked if he was ready. Heijun told it to start already. He was busy and had a delivery to make. Meanwhile, Lucio cried because the idiot had really agreed. The Sphinx smiled and told them to get ready. Heijun expected the classic riddle about what walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at noon and 3 at night. Though honestly, old men these days can get so buff they don't even need a cane. So he stayed confident since he'd heard that one plenty of times. But then the Sphinx asked, "What do you call the sound a duck makes when it falls?" Heijun just stood there with a completely dumbfounded look, while the Sphinx stared at him. He asked what kind of stupid duck question that was. Lucio started thinking and said ducks go quack, then burst into tears because she had no idea what sound they made when they got hurt. Being watched through a sphere, the last thing she wanted was to get eaten alive. That sphere was being observed by a woman dressed in Egyptian clothes, who said the two visitors looked very interesting. The Sphinx stared at them again and demanded the answer. Heijun had no clue. What kind of dad joke was this? Then he remembered he was dealing with a Sphinx. Maybe the answer was some kind of wordplay. The Sphinx grinned and said he had 3 minutes. Lucio, now desperate, cried that this was impossible. Even she, a top scholar, had no idea. Now she was getting mad at Heijun, sure she was about to be eaten because of him. She remembered asking her teacher if Sphinx riddles were hard, and he said that before anyone ever solved one, 100 people got eaten. Lucio asked if that meant they were impossible to solve, and he said not even Jim answered one right. He warned her that if she ever met a Sphinx, she should run. So now she was crying, saying she knew this would end badly. Then Heijun turned around and said the sound a duck makes when it falls is quacksident. A mix of quack and accident. Of course Lucio just froze and asked what the heck he was thinking. Why would he waste their only chance on something that stupid? But the Sphinx smiled and said he was right. She snapped, asking how that dumb answer counted. Heijun, though, thought it was obvious. It was a joke, of course. The Sphinx praised him and said he had earned the right to pass. Before she could finish, he told her to shut up. He solved this mess so she should move. The Sphinx just stood there confused by how hostile he was. Then he told her to come up with a better riddle, because that one sucked. The poor Sphinx started crying. He turned back and asked if she was actually crying. She said no, it was just sand in her eye. Lucio still couldn't believe he had gotten it right. Then Heijun told her to hold on because he was speeding up. After a while they entered the passage, and Lucio called out to him, sounding unsure. He asked what it was, and she said she wanted to apologize for earlier. She was supposed to help him, but instead she kept looking down on him for being human. She said she didn't deserve to call herself a mega elite. Heijun told her she didn't need to be that hard on herself. Compared to the nasty things he'd heard before, this was nothing. To him it was just like hearing an annoying younger cousin, so he didn't care. Lucia got a little shy and thanked him. Later they reached the pyramid. Its size was so crazy that even Lucia couldn't see the top. Heijun checked around. The map said this was the place. Then she noticed some writing nearby. They went to a box covered in Egyptian text, and she said it told them to ring the doorbell. He was impressed she could read hieroglyphs, and she proudly said she was an elite. So he pressed the button, and everything started shaking. She said it was gravity magic that made no sense for a doorbell, and then the ground opened under them, dropping them into a hole. A while later he was on the floor, shocked he survived a fall that far. But he had landed on Lucia and nearly crushed her soul out. He asked if she was dead, and she snapped that sadly, no. Then they moved through the pyramid halls. Heijun thought this felt more like a dungeon crawl than a delivery, until Lucia suddenly told him to stop. He asked if it was a trap. She told him to shine that glowing object at the wall, so she could read the writing. Seeing the hieroglyphs, he asked what it said, and why the painting showed humans with a giant. Lucio looked scared, and he asked if she figured something out. She said she'd heard of an evil goddess who liked tormenting nymphs, and she was sure these drawings were warnings from her ancestors about the attacks there. But to Heijun it looked less like suffering and more like some festival in a field. Still, she got fired up, and said this was her chance to avenge her ancestors. Heijun told her to stay quiet since that person was their client. Then a mysterious leg stepped in and asked what this talk about vengeance was. The woman turned and asked why they had barged into her home. Smiling like some Cleopatra type, she called them very rude. Then she asked which one of them wanted revenge. Heijun couldn't see a thing, obviously, but Lucio flew straight toward her, saying she was there to avenge her ancestors. The MC told her to calm down and asked what she was doing. The Egyptian woman just smiled and asked if she was a nymph, saying it had been a long time since she'd seen one. Then she hugged her and called her adorable. While getting squeezed, Lucio yelled for the enemy to let go. Heijun just stood there, totally lost. Later the woman explained that long ago they held festivals for nymphs there, and the younger ones were always especially cute. She just hated that they were gone now. Heijun said now he understood how they died. She probably hugged them to death, and Lucio was living proof. The woman finally let go, saying she couldn't help herself around something so cute. Lucio cried, saying she almost died. Then she asked Heijun why he didn't save her, and he told her to relax. They started bickering, with her saying he called her like family, so how could he let family die? The woman cut in and said she'd introduce herself. She ruled the 2 brightest lands and was the divine reincarnation of mighty Horus, a pharaoh. But the pair ignored her and kept arguing. While they fought, Heijun asked what this pharaoh stuff meant. Wasn't Egypt supposed to be a kingdom? Lucio said he really understood nothing and explained there were 2 kinds of gods, ones like Cupid or Hephaestus, who were born divine, and others who reached godhood like the woman in front of them. The pharaoh asked why she was being called an old lady. Then Heijun said he came to deliver something, and she replied that she knew. She'd watched his whole trip. At that moment, the package started moving and flew into her hand. Looking it over, she said it was high quality. The craftsman was skilled, and the design was excellent. She added that the delivery man Heijun really lived up to his reputation. That just confused the poor guy. Since when did he have a reputation? Still, with the job done, he thanked her and said any bonus could go straight to his account. Lucio called it embarrassing to work with someone that greedy, and asked if he had no pride. Haijun shot back that pride doesn't buy food. The money she mocked was what paid for the candy she liked. That got her excited, and she said to make sure the deposit was a good one. The pharaoh said their friendship was wonderful and told them not to worry about payment. After all, she was a generous goddess. He got 50,000 for the delivery and another 50,000 as a bonus. That brought him to 195,000 points. The rascal now had a total of $19 million. Lucio said she helped too, so he owed her candy. He told her not to worry, she'd get a whole store. She got excited and said she'd take 90% of the profit, leaving him awkwardly silent. But the woman warned them not to use that tunnel next time and to go through the main entrance. She had fond memories of that place, but it made no sense to take deliveries in the basement. Lucio pointed out that the writing said to ring the bell if there were no guards. The pharaoh explained there hadn't been guards there in years, so they should have just knocked at the front door. So basically, they should have ignored the button and taken the stairs. With that, the delivery was done, and he was back at Hephaestus's house. He was exhausted, but at least he got back in one piece. He told Lucio to wake up since she was drooling on his hand. She woke and asked if they were back already. He said yes. That's when she noticed they were already in front of Hephaestus's house. She spoke over the radio and thanked him for the day, saying she had fun. He asked why she'd suddenly changed. Then he remembered the job was over, so it was time to part ways. Smiling, he said it was nice having her around, even if she talked too much. She told him to shut up and stop ruining the moment, and he said he was only being honest. But when they went inside, both said they never wanted to work together again. Even so, Haijun hadn't expected them to get along this well. Just then, Hephaestus showed up and said the client had praised them a lot, so he was thinking they should keep working together. The two looked at each other, actually thinking about it. Then they knocked their heads together and said they'd only do it if everyone wanted it. And remember, the last chapter ended with him and Lucio crashing into each other while saying they didn't want to team up. Next, our boy is sleeping peacefully in his room when someone calls his name. He wakes up to Lucio shaking him and telling him to get up. He screams and asks what she's doing there, but she just covers her ears and asks why he's yelling at poor Lucio. Then she asks if he really forgot they're partners now. That makes him remember that when he refused, Hephaestus started crying and said it was the first time he'd ever asked his own child for a favor. So Haijun gave in. The real problem wasn't just being her partner. Now he had to live with this headache. He asked why she woke him like that when he was sleeping so well. Lucio said the noise wouldn't stop. He was confused until he looked at his phone and saw it was a delivery from Manjok. He had no idea what Manjok was, but orders were flooding in non-stop. Then he checked and realized what was going on. They were regular delivery jobs, Chinese food all over the city. The guy who'd been making millions was now getting $5 or $10. Then he remembered it had already been a week since all this chaos started, back when that woman made her last delivery while on the toilet. Lucio asked what was wrong and if he was okay, but he told her not to worry. But Lucio won't let it go. She grabs his shirt and demands a real explanation because she wants to understand. Before he can answer, his phone rings. He tenses up when he sees it's his manager calling. The second he picks up, the guy starts yelling, asking if he can't see all the orders piling up and why he isn't working. We finally learn Manjok is the delivery company he used to work for, and the boss says he was already nice enough to end his suspension after just a week. Even then, he says MC still hasn't learned, and if he doesn't start right now, he's fired. But Haijun Lee snaps and tells him to do it. He really doesn't care anymore. The boss asks if he's crazy, but the kid keeps pushing back like, what are you gonna do? Lucio even pulls out a power meter, saying his rage just passed 40,000. Then the thing breaks. The boss warns that if he gets blacklisted, no one else will hire him. Haijun Lee still says he doesn't care. The manager tries to keep talking, but MC hangs up on him. The guy's left whining, especially because his baldness got called out. Lucio asks if he's really okay. He smiles and says he's fine right now. They should go eat. Meanwhile, at the guild, Song Jun is frustrated because they still haven't found the guy. Suze Ojang reports they searched every street he listed, but no one matching that description was there. He thinks the target already knows people are after him and is hiding on purpose. Song Jun thanks him and says he gets it. He already has enough trouble, and now this mystery man is another headache. When asked if they should keep searching, he says no. It isn't worth wasting more people. Then he asks about Busan, and the answer isn't good either. The 6 A-rank hunters sent there came back without closing the gate, so in 5 days it'll become a full dungeon. Song Jun nods and says he understands. A month ago, a gate appeared in an abandoned building. When the association asked his guild to handle it, he knew it wouldn't be easy, but he didn't expect 6 A-ranks to fail. Then he suddenly smiles and says this might actually work out perfectly. He tells Sual to alert the team they're getting ready to move out. Looking ahead, he says he'll remind everyone why his guild is called the best in the country. Meanwhile, Ojang is busy eating a spicy cup noodle and loving it. He says it would have been even better if he'd seen the manager's face after getting called bald and hung up on. Lucio, sitting across from him, says they have a serious problem. She's never had anything this good before, and now she wants way more. He tells her not to spill on her clothes, but she keeps praising how soft and spicy it is. To her, human food is amazing. He realizes she really hasn't enjoyed much in life. Then he reminds her it's just instant noodles. Even people nearby start commenting that things must be rough if she's never eaten cup noodles before. With her age and his face, they assume he's some young single dad. MC did not expect people to see him like that. Later, after they head outside, Lucio is stuffed and he wipes her face, reminding her he told her not to eat so much. That's when it hits him. This feels less like a partner and more like he suddenly has a daughter. People nearby even murmur about how sad it is that a guy this young is raising a kid alone. He realizes the whole neighborhood is judging him, and if Lucio's staying with him, maybe he really does need a bigger place. He starts thinking moving might be a good idea, and she gets excited, saying anything would be better than his tiny fish tank. If they're moving, she says, it should be to that huge castle. She's pointing at a giant luxury apartment building. He squishes her cheeks and tells her she has no idea how expensive a place like that is. With her cheeks puffed out, she asks what happened to all the money he made from the pyramid. Then he remembers how many points he has. He's actually got over $1 million, so maybe it's possible. Maybe it really is time to get his own place. Lucio is already hyped, saying it's huge. And just like that, our delivery boy might actually be shopping for a luxury apartment. It's also brand new, so it's extra nice. He asks the agent for details and hears the soonest they can move in is 2 weeks. The man keeps explaining everything, but Hae-jin Lee cuts him off and says it's fine. He likes how it looks. Still, he wants to check a few more places. He calls to Lucio and says they're leaving to see others, but she asks why not just stay here. He picks her up and says he hasn't decided yet, so they're going. Then he glances aside and thinks he recognizes a girl. A bit later, Lucio is again stuffing herself with instant noodles, saying they're delicious. Then she looks at him and asks why he isn't eating. He's too busy staring at the papers, drooling over the fact that he bought a home after one day of looking. After talking with the agent, they checked a few more places, but he ended up choosing the first one. It was new and the price was decent. Still, he can't stop thinking about the girl he saw leaving the apartment. Then he remembers where he saw her before, at the Tartaros gate. So she's a hunter too. He figures she probably didn't recognize him since his helmet covered half his face. But something else matters more right now. Why have no delivery requests come in? Lucio says they did one not long ago, but he points out that was 2 days back. She says that's not very long, but he's used to getting at least one job every day. She tells him to stop expecting that forever. Greed only causes problems, and he already should have made plenty of money. He quietly admits she was right until yesterday. Before buying the place, he had about 19 million ready to use, but the down payment alone ate 12 million. Once he adds the installments, furniture, and living costs for both of them, he realizes he spent way too much. Lucio is stunned and says the money from the pharaoh could have bought a castle in the divine realm. He says that can't be helped. Real estate in Central Korea really is that bad. She asks what they do now, and he says when you're broke, you save. So no sweets for her for a while. Her face drops at once, but then she says she'll think of something. A second later, she gets an idea and asks why he doesn't go door to door looking for jobs. There's no rule saying they have to wait for work to come to them. They could ask Hephaestus which gods might need deliveries. He ruffles her hair and admits she's actually pretty smart. The problem is getting to Olympus. She says he goes there all the time, so it should be easy. But Mengsi explains he only gets there when a delivery teleports him in. Lucio instantly looks crushed. Then the story cuts to a helicopter, carrying teams 1 and 2 of the Young One Guild. 45 hunters were called in, including number 2, Aaron Barak, MC's neighbor, and Sang-jin too. He reminds everyone that today's mission is the newly formed gate. They need to leave past failures behind and show the guild's glory again. Everyone cheers. Then he calls for Aaron, and the helicopter takes off. Inside, he asks if she's sure the motorcycle guy moved in next door to her. With that sharp memory of hers, she says yes. She can't be completely certain, but it really seems that way. The guild leader is crushed. After spending huge resources trying to find the guy, it turns out he may have moved in right beside her. He asks one more time if she's sure, and she says yes. At least now Team 1 has an easy lead, so their focus can stay on clearing the gate. Meanwhile, Aaron is thinking this must be the man who soloed the 8 trigrams, and she's seriously excited to fight him someday. Back at Hephaestus' forge, MC arrives, but not for a delivery this time. The place is dark and closed up. Lucio panics and says they should leave before they get punished for trespassing. He says it's fine, especially since she's the one who taught him how to get here. Even so, Lucio insists it's rude to enter someone's home when they aren't around. He can't help noticing how hypocritical that is, considering she's called the forge owner an old hack before. Then someone steps on his back and demands to know who dared trespass so early. It's just Hephaestus, and MC greets him. The god says he doesn't remember ordering any delivery, so why is he here? MC answers that he came to ask a small favor. The dwarf asks what he wants, but MC says first he brought a gift so he wouldn't show up empty-handed. When the protagonist asks what it is, he proudly shows off a fresh bottle of soju. Since the god liked the beer before, he figured he'd bring something new. MC acts like he doesn't care, then immediately tells him to ask for the favor he'll help. Le Jia asks if he knows any god who might need a delivery service. The dwarf thinks for a moment and says a few names do come to mind, but there's a catch. The jobs he knows about are extremely dangerous. But Le Jia, he doesn't hesitate. He says he'll do any job. Nothing is scarier than being broke. Hephaestus decides the kid is ready, and says he'll send him over right now. A blue flash appears and Le Jia tries to ask which god it is, but he's already gone. An instant later, he appears in a thick forest with no clue where he is. Hephaestus sent him off without a single detail. Then the system suddenly warns him. Danger detected. The moment Lejia trains, he sees a red eye glaring at him. A giant three-eyed demon boar is charging straight in. He braces himself, knowing he can't dodge in time until an arrow shoots out from the bushes and hits the beast right in the head, dropping it on the spot. He spins around, confused, wondering what just happened, and if the thing is really dead. Then a familiar blue glow pops out of the bushes, cheering that they almost got flattened. He's stunned. He had no idea Lucio followed him. She says the second he vanished, she teleported after him. It was close, but she's impressed he beat one of the most feared beasts around here. Still shaking, Lejia says he wasn't the one who killed it. Then someone behind them says that was him. Lejia hadn't even noticed anyone else nearby. The old guy looks strange enough that even MC can't help staring. The man comments on finding a human and a nymph here. Lejia keeps staring. His upper body is human, but below that he's a horse. Then his phone confirms he reached the destination. So this odd old man is today's client. The old man says almost no one ever makes it here and asks who they are. The second Lucio notices the centaur's injured leg, she calls Lee over and says she thinks she knows him. Jason, leader of the Argonauts, Achilles, hero of the Trojan War, and even Hercules, who led Olympus against the giants, were all trained by this man. He's Chiron, teacher of the greatest heroes. The moment she says Hercules, he draws his bow and aims at them. With an arrow ready, he demands to know if they have any idea how much pain that name caused him. Lee quickly explains they aren't here because of Hercules. They were sent by Hephaestus. That calms Chiron for a second, but then he unleashes a storm of arrows, shouting that they must take him for a fool. Luckily, MC's gear lets him dodge while the forest gets torn apart. Later, inside Chiron's house, they finally explain everything from the start. Chiron says that's interesting. Hephaestus wouldn't casually send just anyone to him. Still, no matter how he looks at this kid, he doesn't seem like a hero. Then again, he's traveling with a nymph, and even famous heroes rarely had help like that. Meanwhile, Lee quietly asks Lucio why Chiron still doubts them after all that. She says she has no clue. She heard he was supposed to be kind. At last, Chiron decides to believe them, and both of them relax in relief. Then he asks if they really can retrieve anything. MC says almost anything, so Chiron gives him a chance. He hands over an empty container and says that north of here there's a huge lake. Lee needs to go there and collect saliva from the fool living nearby. He takes the jar, but the word saliva makes him pause. Is this guy seriously asking him to fill it with spit? Chiron says yes, that's exactly what he wants, and asks if there's a problem. Lee thinks it's a pretty weird invasion of privacy, but agrees to do it fast. No way he's passing up a paying job. As Chiron watches, he thinks the kid is a fool for heading there without fearing what waits ahead. At the same time, it's a good test. If he finishes this, the next job will be the frozen mountain, something no human should be able to clear. Still, Chiron doubts the kid will even make it to the plaza. Then Lee activates his suit and blasts into the sky. Chiron is left staring in shock as MC flies off with Lucio in his arms. After using the suit so much, he's gotten used to it and can keep his speed all the way to the cave. The climb is quick, and seconds later he lands at the entrance. He shuts the suit off with 32 seconds of flight time left. Lucio, on the other hand, is so dizzy she looks ready to throw up. Once inside, Lee says now they just need that saliva. The problem is they keep walking and find nothing. Then he notices Lucio breaking into a cold sweat and starts to worry. She shakily insists she's a high-ranking elite warrior and scared of nothing. Then they hear a single drop of liquid hit the ground. Lucio screams and Lee tells her to relax. It's only a drop. It's not like a monster is about to appear right now. And of course that's when he senses movement. He turns and sees a giant 36-headed serpent, most likely the legendary Hydra. Good news, getting saliva won't be hard. Bad news, that monster is insanely strong. Back at Chiron's house, he wonders where that kid disappeared to. He thought he was just some mortal, but even with strange abilities, there was no way he should have reached the mountain that fast. Then Chiron spots the crater from the launch and uses a skill to confirm the boy really made it to the cave. He gets ready to jump there himself, but his bad leg slows him down. Even so, he leaps off, saying it would be insane if the kid actually went inside. After all, that cave is home to an immortal monster. Meanwhile, Lee forces a smile, or tries to. He knows his odds of dying are way too high. A second later, he's running for his life with Lucio in his arms, cursing Chiron for tricking them. Later, the Hydra scans the area searching for him. He's hiding behind a rock, whispering that they just need to wait until it falls asleep. But Lucio is trembling and says she knows exactly what this monster is. The beast in front of them is a Hydra. She asks why he ever accepted Chiron's request. He snaps back that he wouldn't have if Chiron had told the truth. That centaur tricked him. If he had his helmet, he might stand a chance, but right now he's fully exposed. Then a system window pops up. In emergencies, teleport service is available. It won't move him. Instead, for 5,000 points, he can bring shop items to his location. The problem is 5,000 coins cost 35,000, and the helmet only cost 800 points. It's a total scam, but he doesn't have a choice. His life matters more, so he grits his teeth and pays. The helmet appears in his hand. Lucio stares, shocked, asking how it came out of nowhere. Lee sighs and says the only thing disappearing was his money. He puts on the cursed helmet and says, "All right, Hydra, open wide." Then he starts walking straight toward it. Lucio panics, asking if he's gone insane and reminding him the exit is the other way. He says he knows, but he's going to handle it. Lucio warns him that thing isn't some baby monster, it's the real deal. The Hydra is the child of a god, and its venom is so deadly even Olympus fears it. MC replies that if Typhon is really her father, he must have had terrible taste to make a daughter that ugly. Lucio tells him to stop joking. This monster is far beyond the Sphinx, but he tells her to wait at the entrance and promises he'll be fine. Lucio storms off, angrily saying she hopes the Hydra's venom burns his skin off. He's left thinking that curse was way too harsh. Still, it's time to deal with the monster. With the helmet active, he walks up to it. The Hydra seems asleep with its eyes open, venom dripping from its mouth. He opens the container to collect some, but when the venom hits the ground and melts everything, he realizes any normal container would be destroyed. He has no clue why Chiron wants this stuff, but it better pay well. Then the whole cave starts shaking. The ceiling trembles like it's about to collapse, and he has no idea why an earthquake is ripping through the cave. Worse, he drops the container. Yeah, now he's in trouble. His hand is literally on the Hydra's eye, and he's wondering how he's supposed to steal its saliva now. The monster seems to look right at him, and he nearly screams, but it's only in his head. He doesn't make a sound. He covers his mouth and tells himself to calm down. As long as the helmet stays on, there's no need to freak out. Then a voice suddenly asks what's going on. It says, it smells rotting underworld spirits, a scent it hasn't caught in ages, and asks if the boy came from Tartarus. Hygiene quickly realizes she found him by smell. The voice tells him not to panic. It knows he's using Hades' helmet to hide himself. Seeing there's no point acting anymore, our boy stays still, as she asks why he came to her. Cold sweat runs down his back. There's no way he can admit he came to steal her saliva. The snake heads keep pressing him, and one big head guesses Hades sent him. They start bickering with each other, and then the voice demands an answer, asking why he still won't speak. He better not have come all this way just to wake her up for nothing. So he makes something up and says he only came to check on her. He takes off the helmet and claims he came from Tartarus to see how she's doing. That clearly catches her off guard. She guesses Cerberus must have sent him, and Hydra instantly agrees. Awkwardly, he says Cerberus hadn't seen her in a long time and wanted to know if she was okay. The Hydra says she never thought that bastard would care about his older sister. After more than 1,000 years without contact, she never expected this. That leaves Hydra stunned. This Hydra is insanely dangerous, so he knows he has to stay sharp. Outside, Lucio is furious and on the verge of tears. No matter what Hydra tries, she's sure he can't beat the Hydra, so she runs down the mountain to get help. On the way, she runs into Chiron, who asks why she's alone. She blurts out that Hygiene is facing the Hydra. Chiron is shocked. He never thought the kid would go that deep into the cave. When she begs for help, he admits even a divine being like him can't beat that monster. Lucio demands to know what they're supposed to do. Chiron can only think that he should have sent the boy home instead of testing him. With a sigh, he tells her to lead the way. She asks if he's sure, and he says he won't let the boy die because of him. Back in the cave, Hygiene is still in shock. He never expected the Hydra to have a human form. She says his reaction makes sense. Since being trapped there, she hasn't been able to use her real form. Not even her brother has seen her like this, so of course he's surprised. Hygiene figures that brother has to mean Cerberus. The Hydra softly asks how her little brother is doing, saying she misses him dearly. He just tells her Cerberus is doing well. He eats 3 meals a day, works hard, and seems happy. Naturally, Hygiene leaves out the part where Cerberus is now Persephone's pet. The Hydra smiles, relieved to hear it. Hygiene quickly says goodbye and tries to leave now that his job is done. But the moment he turns, she tells him to stop and he freezes. She says anyone who came because of her little brother can't leave empty-handed. His body locks up as he turns back and stiffly says that really isn't necessary. Too late, she flicks her tongue and insists. Then she turns around and tells him to take the odd-colored scale from her back. He hesitates, unsure why she wants him to have it. She tells him not to worry. Her scales carry magic that will help him on his journey. He guesses it's like the hairs Wukong gave him. At that point, he's sold. No way he's passing up a gift like that. Even while staring at her, he's half afraid he'll get turned to stone. To be safe, he activates the suit for a second and rips the scale off her back. The problem is, the suit sucks for short bursts, so he slams into the ground. He's grinning with the crystal in hand, but the Hydra is clearly not pleased. She says he's gotten bold. So bold, in fact, that she might not let him off so easily. Yep, that sounds like a challenge. Hygiene scrambles up, insisting it was an accident. Meanwhile, Chiron is shaking, trying to process what he just saw. He yells, asking if the boy actually beat the Hydra. From the censor's view, the MC is blazing with power while the Hydra looks collapsed on the ground. Lucio jumps off Chiron's back and hugs Hygiene, saying she's just glad he's alive. He glares at her and reminds her he said to wait outside because it was dangerous. She pouts and says she was scared. While they argue, Chiron still can't believe a human beat the Hydra, something even Hercules struggled with. Hephaestus really did send someone special. Hygiene then apologizes to the Hydra for the noise. She says it's fine and asks if the nymph is his. He quickly denies it, saying she's more like a neighborhood kid. The Hydra smiles and says their dynamic is interesting. Then she looks at Chiron and says it's been a long time. He's aged a lot. Maybe time beat even his immortal body, or maybe her venom finally wore him down. Hyjin gets confused, wondering what history they have. Lucio laughs and says he really knows nothing. Their story is famous. It involved Hercules, an arrow coated in Hydra venom, and the loss of Chiron's immortality. Officially, it was an accident. In that battle, centaurs were falling everywhere, and Chiron was hit in the leg by one of those arrows. But maybe it wasn't just an accident. Maybe it was karma for raising a monster like Hercules. Before Zeus in Olympus, someone called him Chiron the Wise and asked if he truly wished to give up immortality. Kneeling, he begged Zeus to take it away, because the pain was too much. Zeus paused, then agreed. As thanks for training so many heroes, he said Chiron would receive a constellation. Chiron asked what that meant, but Zeus only told him, "You will not die. One day you'll understand." The centaur tried to object, but it was already decided. That day Chiron the Wise ended, and he rose as a divine being, the commander of Sagittarius. From then on, he became Chiron the Mythic. Back in the cave, the Hydra says her venom is a death sentence to any creature, so she's impressed he's still standing. He must be burning through all his mythical power just to endure it. Chiron, clearly hurting, says her tongue is still as nasty as ever. Maybe he should cut it off. She smirks and says his mouth got filthier. He used to be gentle, at least from what she remembered. Then she turns to Hyjin and asks if his name is Hagen. He nods, busy sorting out two very important things, when a flash of light blinds everyone. Then the Hydra lifts a small vial and says she knows he came for her saliva. Chiron sent him to get it. Our boy asks if she knew the whole time. She laughs and says of course, he smelled like Chiron. Then she tells Chiron to come take it. But he hesitates and asks what she wants in return, knowing she'd never hand it over for free. The Hydra sighs and says everyone treats her like a villain, but she reminds him she never poisoned him. That was Hercules. Hyjin is totally thrown. This changes the whole myth. Even after hearing the truth, he's still stunned. The Hydra offers the vial and says she's waited a long time for him to come claim it. Chiron pauses, then takes it. He opens the vial and drinks it right away. What the hell? Antidote or not, his whole body starts burning. The poison looks like it's racing through his leg even faster. His vision blurs and he collapses. Seeing that, Hagen panics and asks what she did. Then he hears laughter. Chiron is on the floor crying with joy because his leg finally feels normal again. For 3,890 years, he had lived with that pain in the world of mythical creatures. He had forgotten what life without agony even felt like. The Hydra gently pats him and says she can only imagine how awful that must have been. Hagen and Lucio rush over, calling to him. Sometime later at Chiron's house, they sit around wondering why he's taking so long. Hagen starts complaining, but Lucio tells him to stop accusing an honest guy like Chiron. He deflates, thinking he probably doesn't even deserve payment since the Hydra gave them the saliva herself. Sitting there, he realizes he has no real case to argue. Then Chiron opens the door and apologizes for the wait. He says it took longer than expected to find what he needed. Our boy is about to complain, but Lucio covers his mouth and says they waited just fine. She asks if he was looking for his bow, and he says yes. The bow was first meant for Hercules, but Chiron believes it suits Hagen better. Being a total idiot, our boy grumbles that he'd rather have points and assumes Chiron is just bad at rewards. Thinking it's some random item, he takes it anyway. Right then, the door swings open. Both of them ask who's there, and a man walks in, apologizing for barging in like this. Lucio seems to know him, and yeah, that sword makes the entrance look way too cool. It's Ares, the god of war. Still clueless, Hagen mutters that all he knows is this guy is Olympus's biggest troublemaker. Lucio warns him to watch it. Ares is the prince of the gods, the son of Zeus and Hera. Ares says it's odd seeing a mortal traveling with a nymph. He asks if he's Hagen Lee, and the MC says yes. Ares suddenly rushes him, saying he finally found him, and Hagen can't even react, but Ares drops to the floor instead. He begs for help, leaving Hagen totally confused. At 27, Hagen Lee became the first human to make a god his meal. Later on a train, Lucio says this weird car is crazy fast. He tells her it's a train, not a car, and to lower her voice because people are around. The MC is worn out. He just finished one job and got dragged into another. Then a notice appears on his phone, minus 100,000 coins from Chiron, plus a 100,000 bonus. His exhaustion disappears on the spot, until the man behind them tells them to stop shouting. Lucio laughs at him, but he doesn't care. He just made $1.5 million. The real issue now is the urgent mission, save Ares' hunter in 5 hours. Back at the house, he asks what this job is even about. Ares says he backed a hunter, but when he checked the man's location, it showed he would die today. Hagen asks why Ares can't do it himself. Lucio says that would break the law of causality. Chiron explains that gods can't interfere with human life and death. No matter how much they hate it, even gods can't control fate. But Ares says this case is different. He can't let this hunter die. He bet everything on him. There's a kind of myth-level hunter. Gods can pour points into them and give them more power. As the hunter gets more famous, the god earns more too. But if that hunter dies before finishing the mission, the god loses every point invested. Chiron calls him insane for putting it all on one hunter. Turns out Ares is a full-on gambling addict, and now he's shaking, begging for help one last time. He didn't just use his own points, he secretly used his father's too. Hagen and Lucio freeze because if Ares means his father's points, then he burned through Zeus's whole fortune. Back on the train, the MC mutters that he's not some miracle worker. How is he supposed to protect a hunter with myth-level talent? Still, since it's urgent and Ares is paying, the reward has to be huge. Lucio asks where they're going, and he shows her the ticket to Busan. Inside a cave, bodies of monsters are everywhere. Songjan shouts for everyone to get ready. The next wave is coming. The whole guild braces for battle as the beasts rush in. Songjan tears through them like nothing. So this is the guy loaded with mythic points, just cutting down monsters like they're nothing. Even after all they kill, the waves keep coming. Tamis, our boy's future waifu, is there too, cutting through monsters right beside them. Tamejan asks for a report, and she says the rear of the cave is clear for now. He tells everyone to use the break and rest. The team sits down. The leader asks how far the boss is, and someone says they should reach the door soon. They were struggling, but making it this far in half the normal time is still impressive. Tamejan says he heard even rank 6 hunters had to retreat, so the boss must be absurdly strong. A teammate says it's a 10-meter monster. They might have had a chance fresh, but by the time they reach it, everyone will be drained. Tamejan praises them for retreating and calling backup. Then he gets up and says it's time to move. He wants to get home fast. The group stops at a huge door, knowing the boss is right behind it. As it opens, Tamejan tells the tanks to go first. On the other side is a cavern even larger than before. The weird part is that it's empty. Everyone looks around, confused. They're sure this is the boss room. Then drops land on Erin's clothes. She wonders why water is falling from above and looks up. Her face changes instantly, and she screams for everyone to run. Too late, a wave of purple liquid pours down on them. Tamejan calls out to her as several adventurers start getting dragged away. He turns on the informant and demands to know why none of this matches his report. The man starts shaking, then tentacles burst from his mouth as he whispers that he brought everything his mother wanted. It was a trap. Above them hangs a giant jelly-like monster covered in eyes, with tentacles reaching down. Then the scene shifts to a beach. Hagen and Lucio stare at the portal he has to enter to save, well, whoever it is. Yeah, like it's some huge secret we all know who he's going in for. Lucio, annoyed, asks why she can't come too. He tells her to be serious. This gate is the second biggest after Tartarus. He knows she's upset because he almost died yesterday, but he only has one helmet. Then he gets an idea and offers her cash, saying she can buy all the sweets she wants. Lucio throws the money back at him and says she's not that easy to bribe. He shrugs and says that's too bad because it could buy 50 pieces of candy. Her face changes the second she realizes how much that is. While she's still thinking about it, he steps into the portal and reminds her if a stranger shows up, send them away. A flash of light, and he's inside the dungeon. This time it's a cave. He steps on something nasty and wonders what it was. Then he spots a pile of dead monsters ahead. Now he gets why the people inside are in trouble. There are way too many monsters. The bad news is he's in here too, and he has to get through all of them. If he had his bike, this would be easy, but it's not here, and his suit is still on cooldown. 10 seconds in, and he's already out of options. Then the shop menu pops up, reminding him he can buy something in an emergency. For a moment, he gets excited. But when he checks, summoning his bike costs 100,000 points. What kind of bike costs 1,000,000,001? As he complains, someone walks up behind him and asks what he's doing. He jumps and accidentally hits the bike purchase. It's Lucio. She says there was no way she was letting him go alone, and just like that, 100,000 points are gone. He asks what she's doing there. He already told her she couldn't come. Stubborn as always, Lucio says she already told him she was coming. Hagen starts scolding her when something lights up beside them. Lucio tells him to look, and sure enough, the motorbike appears. But this isn't his old one. He bought a new model. He's instantly hyped, and good thing too, because a swarm of monsters is charging in. He throws Lucio on the back and speeds through the dungeon. Back in the boss room, the purple slime keeps falling. Songjin realizes this was the boss's plan all along. Now almost everyone is trapped in the tentacles, except for him. While he looks for a way to save them, an attack comes from above. He barely avoids it and unleashes a storm of slashes. Attacks keep coming from every side, and he knows he'll get caught sooner or later. The problem is how to fight a boss stuck to the ceiling. This is nothing like what they were told to expect. Worse, he's never heard of a monster that can control humans. If this thing gets out of the dungeon, the world will be chaos. It has to die here. Inside one tentacle, Irina floats unconscious. Then her eyes snap open and she shreds everything around her with a burst of slashes. Skrongjo rushes over, relieved she got out. He asks how she is and she says she's fine, but almost at her limit. They need to bring the boss down fast and free the others. She rushes in to draw its focus and make an opening. The boss fires more attacks, but she dodges them all and drives in with her daggers. The hit lands, creating the opening Skrongjo was waiting for. He activates Ares' divine power, Mars Punishment. Energy gathers, then erupts, swallowing the boss in a huge pillar of flame. A few seconds later, he's completely drained. This is one of the rare mythic class skills, so that boss should be dead. It's the move that lets him keep his title as guild leader, and no boss has survived it before. But of course this one lived. Otherwise the MC wouldn't be here to save this idiot, and that cursed eye wouldn't still be staring at him. The poor guy can't believe the monster is still alive, but Eren yells at him to quit standing there and run. Instead, he just apologizes and freezes. As the boss charges another attack, he says this is the end, going full drama mode about not being strong enough to save his friends. The eye swells, ready to fire, then a motorbike blasts straight through it. The MC grins and says delivery's here. Both Xiu-chan and Eren just stare, completely speechless. Meanwhile, Hagen is furious that his 100,000 coin bike is already covered in slime, but at least he made one hell of an entrance. Through the smoke, the guild leaders can only stare, trying to understand why a guy on a motorbike just showed up. Then someone steps forward and says humans gave this thing a terrible name. Lucio, in full biker mode, declares she's the elite pilot. The two just stare at the strange little girl, trying to figure out who she is. Meanwhile, Lucio stands there dramatically, striking a pose and telling them not to lock up in front of the great Lucio. Then the guy with the monster mouth shows up behind her. For a second, she thinks Mega Racer Lucio is done for, but Hyjin rushes in and yanks the nasty creature out of his mouth, asking what kind of messed up people these are. The poor guy who was being eaten instantly faints in Lucio's arms. Then Hyjin catches a flash of light and turns just in time to see the boss is still alive, even with its eye pierced. Right away, he realizes this has to be the real dungeon boss. Looks like he got here just in time. He asks which one of them is Ceiling Chowder Park. From the back, Ceiling Chowder says it's him. Our boy walks over and circles around him, asking if he's hurt and giving him a quick check. He says the guy looks familiar, then remembers he saw him in Tartarus. He never thought he'd run into that hunter out here. Small world. Sangjin snaps at him to focus and kill the boss already. But Hyjin just shrugs, asking what that has to do with him. Hunters kill monsters. He's just the delivery guy. No way he's fighting. Really, his suit is on cooldown, so he can't do much anyway. That's when Eren's face hardens. She says she didn't expect him to be the type to toy with people's lives. He tells her to relax. All he's saying is Selingen should be the one to finish this boss, not him. Of course, Selingen thinks that's crazy. He has no weapon left, and he's completely drained. Then Hyjin pulls out his phone. Delivery's here. It's the weapon of Eris he brought along. A bright glow fills the room and both Selingen and Eren cover their eyes, trying to see what's going on. Selingen's eyes widen as a legendary greatsword appears before him, a blade thought to exist only in myth, the ender of wars. Our boy turns to leave, saying his job is done, but Selingen calls out, asking who sent the sword and how he can move through dungeons if he isn't a hunter. Hyjin turns back, his arms shining with divine power, and says, "You can call me the Divine Delivery Man." He hops on his bike and adds that they'll talk later. Selingen is left completely confused, wondering who that lunatic even is. At the same time, the boss starts charging another attack. With no other choice, Selingen grabs the sword, his last shot. The second he touches it, red energy bursts upward, and a new power floods his body. For a moment, his whole form changes. He fully awakens into Ares' mythic form. Eren can only stare at the power pouring off him, while the boss readies its final strike. But now Selingen is calm and sharp. He gets ready to attack, saying that for the first time, he feels like he can actually win. He activates Ares' divine power. The sword grows huge and bursts into flames. With one swing, he cuts forward. The boss fires back with its own attack, a full-on Dragon Ball-style clash. But unlike Goku, Selingen isn't the protagonist. Even so, his attack crushes the monsters and completely vaporizes it. The blast forms an X and lights up the whole cavern. When the smoke clears, Eren can only stare. He didn't just kill the boss, he blew apart the entire ceiling too. This guy is insane. At least Eren's power is finally fading, otherwise he'd be way too broken. Eren catches the unconscious guy and says he did well, but she's even more curious about that biker kid. Back in the city, our boy is starving and just wants food. Even the Divine Delivery Man needs to eat. Meanwhile, the news is already reporting that the gate in Heimbei City has been cleared, and according to them, it's all thanks to the country's strongest hunter, Sangjin Park, or so they say. Lying in a hospital bed, Selingen mutters that that's all anyone talks about, but he knows that without the delivery man he never would have had a chance. He glances to the side, deep in thought. That guy is no ordinary person, especially if he's handing out artifacts from the gods. Just then someone comes rushing down the hallway. Doyor bursts in yelling for the guildmaster and asking if he's okay. But the second he sees the boss, he mutters that the bastard doesn't even look that hurt. Then he gets excited, saying he heard the kid completely wreck the boss. No wonder he's the third strongest. He also asks what that red sword was and where the old one went. Sangjin simply says it broke. Doyon is stunned. That sword cost 100 billion, so how did it break? But the guy tells him not to worry, because the new one is way better. An item delivered by the Divine Delivery Man. Doyon nearly loses it and starts drooling. No telling what he's thinking, but Sangjin says it's good he came, because he needs a favor. Now that he knows who that guy is, he wants Doyon to find his address. Doyon asks why, and of course the boss wants to recruit him into the guild. Then the scene shifts to Ares' temple. Ares walks in grinning, saying that since the kid is back, he must have delivered the sword. The delivery man says not to worry, it went smoothly. and the hunter survived. Ares relaxes and says it's no surprise the kid has such a strong reputation. Then he tells him to come inside because he has a reward for him. The kid smiles, thinking there's no way he'll fall for a trick from Olympus's biggest troublemaker. Meanwhile, Lucio tells him to show some respect, since this man is a prince of Olympus. That's when Hyunjin Lee suddenly remembers, right, this guy is royalty. As they walk through the temple, our boy keeps looking around. Then Ares stops and tells Lucio to wait there. Only Hyunjin Lee can come with him. She doesn't even get an explanation, and our boy just waves goodbye. They keep going through the temple halls, and then Hyunjin looks up in surprise. The door ahead is huge, and Ares says it weighs 3 tons. Our boy asks how they're supposed to open this Hunter x Hunter looking door, and Ares basically says, just use Nen and boom, it opens. Inside is a ridiculous amount of treasure. Everything there belongs to the heir of Olympus and the god of war himself, Ares. Naturally, our guy immediately asks how much all of it is worth and if he can choose anything. You'd expect Ares to be cheap, but he actually says he can pick whatever he wants. Then he crouches down, says he knows something good, and pulls out a golden box. Hyunjin Lee asks what it is, and Ares says he doesn't know either. So our boy asks why he'd give him that. Ares says that even for him, it's a rare treasure, so it's worth keeping. He doesn't know exactly what it is, but he's sure it's not useless. After all, it came from a god of Olympus, who called it one of his most precious treasures. He's curious about it too, so he's convinced it should be a great reward. But judging by Hyunjin Lee's face, it doesn't look promising. He calls it trash, and Ares tells him to show it. So our boy pulls out a tiny wooden stick. Yeah, maybe one of those joke items that turns broken later. Out of nowhere, the scene cuts to a huge ocean, where a big ship is sailing, and a man shouts that they have a problem. They've run into a group of sirens, and yeah, that's a serious problem. Poor Jason is about to get caught by their song. Then it cuts back to our boy smacking Ares with the stick. Everything is a mess, and now we're back with our boy waking up. His body feels worn out, looks like he slept for a long time. After getting that weird wooden stick from Ares, he went home, passed out, and now wakes up to Lucio dreaming about sweets. He tells the cursed child to wake up, but then realizes she's probably exhausted too, so he gently tucks her in with a blanket. Later, at a convenience store, he buys an energy drink and some chocolate, thanks the cashier, and looks to the side. A poster announces the hunter exam is coming in 3 days. He never even thought about becoming a hunter, but hiding his identity while going in and out of dungeons is getting harder. Maybe he should try it. When he gets home, Lucio asks for sweets. He says he brought something good. But then a system notification appears. It's a request from Hephaestus, and he tells her they'll eat later. Using his new motorbike, he arrives at the blazing hot location and greets the dwarf god. The little guy is happy he came so fast, and our boy asks what's going on. He says people have been talking about how he saved Chiron's leg and helped Hajin. Hajin gets awkward since he didn't think word would spread that quickly, and says it was just luck. Then he asks what today's delivery is, and the dwarf looks behind him. A man walks up, and Hephaestus says the timing is perfect. Lucio looks shocked when she sees his face, while Hajin, as usual, has no clue who he is. The protagonist says this guy is lightning fast with sea deliveries. His name is Jason, and he works for Argo Deliveries. And just like Hajin, I had no idea who that was. I checked, and yeah, he's a myth sailor from the Argonauts. I still don't totally get it, but apparently he exists in mythology, you know what I mean. He introduces himself and says our boy can call him the Great Adventurer. Basically, Jason leads a group called the Argonauts, made up of famous travelers and heroes. He thanks our boy for healing his adoptive father's leg. Then he asks if they can get to business, and Hajin says sure. That's when Jason explains his company has run into trouble. A bunch of sirens showed up along their route, and now they can't get through. Before, whenever sirens showed up, Orpheus handled them, but he's away on a long trip right now, so they can't do much. That's why Jason came after hearing rumors about the great delivery man Hagen Lee. Hagen asks if he really wants him to deal with sirens. Jason says yes. That's exactly it. Our boy is baffled. Is he a courier or a monster killer? Why does everyone want him to go slay something? Jason tells him not to say no yet. Once he hears the reward, he'll change his mind. The job pays 500,000. That's a crazy reward, so Hagen is instantly interested. Then Hephaestus reminds him sirens live in the ocean, which makes things tough if all he has is a motorbike. MC is so thrown off he didn't even think about the fact that sirens live in the sea. MC tells him not to worry. He has the right magic for that. Soon they're on a ship heading toward the Melodic Isles. Jason points out the islands ahead, and Hagen says he'll handle it. Jason thanks him and promises they'll send a boat to pick him up later. Then our boy jumps off and calls for Lucio. Wait, did he just start the bike? Is that thing made for water too? Not exactly. Hephaestus enchanted his hat with water magic, so the bike can run across the sea, but Lucio warns him. He clearly has no idea what sirens really are. He's picturing pretty mermaids, but Lucio says their songs are deadly. Even Odysseus had to block his ears to pass safely. A small pack of them could even bring down a kraken. Hagen tells her not to worry when monsters get violent. The best answer is to beat them down. The sirens notice a human and a nymph coming and whisper among themselves. They dive beneath the water ready to deal with him. Meanwhile, our boy keeps riding ahead. Then Lucio warns him something's coming, and a huge monster bursts up with its jaws wide open. Before it can attack, Hagen smacks it right in the face with the wooden stick. He remembers Ares saying a gift from Zeus had to be powerful, so he asks the siren how it feels to get hit by a +99 enchanted wooden stick. The siren just stares at him, not bothered at all. She says it felt like being tapped with a foam pool noodle. That's when Hagen realizes Ares totally scammed him. The stick is worthless. Later, the sirens search the area, trying to find where the two vanished. Hiding behind a rock with Lucio's helmet active, he asks what she sees. She says the monsters went the other way, so they're safe for now. But right in front of them is the siren's nest. He remembers Jason saying the easiest way isn't fighting them all. It's killing the queen. Once she dies, the others lose their power. Lucio says that's insane, especially with Ares' useless stick. Hagen grips it and says he really wants to beat Ares up, but he still has one more option: the store. Money solves everything. A golden orb of Zeus's thunder appears, and yeah, it cost a lot. 150,000 points, about $1.5 million. Inside the siren's lair, the queen is enjoying herself. One siren complains they haven't eaten in 10 days and asks to hunt, but the queen refuses. Orpheus, the one who usually ruins their hunts, isn't here. A chance like this won't come again. They'll wait calmly until a big human ship passes, then attack. She tells them to be patient, because their perfect meal is coming soon, and our boy hears all of it. He's stunned that she's casually planning to wipe out a whole ship of people. Lucio quickly points out the target is obviously Jason's crew. Then Hagen suddenly asks if she remembers the black ramen they had. She says of course it was amazing. He tells her that if she helps with his plan, he'll buy her the deluxe version. She immediately perks up and says she's ready. He leans in and whispers the plan to her. She asks if he's sure, worrying it's risky. But he takes off the helmet, puts it on her, and says he's counting on her. He trusts her, and she flies off, promising not to fail him. He knows the hat only works within a limited range, so now the sirens can see him. He yells at them, calling them dumb fish. The dangerous beauties turn around, shocked he got inside. They demand to know how he entered the temple. He turns around, smacks his own butt, and tells them to come kill him. The queen is not amused. She orders them to capture him. The monsters rush after him, and he runs for his life. But since he removed the helmet, his water movement is about to stop. Right then, he calls for Lucio, who's on his back holding the divine orb. He activates it, says he's out, and the one-time item blows the whole temple apart. The sirens chasing him get buried under the rubble, and everything collapses. He only meant to kill the queen, but being late forced him to wipe them all out. At least Jason's route should be safe now. Lucio appears and congratulates him, but something feels off to Hagen. If the queen died, why didn't he get a reward? Then a monster bursts from the debris and grabs Lucio's leg. The queen demands to know what they think they're doing. She says she can't hear any of her daughters breathing anymore. Hagen screams as Lucio is about to be eaten. He activates stage 2 of his suit and charges in. He slams the queen across the cheek and yells at her to let Lucio go. The hit spins her through the water. Our boy is impressed by how strong stage 2 is, but then the queen disappears. He looks underwater and she suddenly shows up right beside him and grabs his leg. Yeah, that's bad. She drags him into the deep and says she'll keep pulling him down until he runs out of air. Hagen starts thinking this might really be the end. He just bought his first apartment and still has so many points left to spend. He refuses to die like this. It's time to crush this boss. His great club kicks into overload at 100% power. He smashes it into her head so hard she's left shaking, then follows with a brutal combo straight to her face. The beating lights up the ocean, and Lucio is shocked to see him still standing. With the giant club in hand, he declares justice served. The sirens are done. Later at a Chinese restaurant, Lucio is eating happily. She says the fancy food is delicious. He smiles, glad she likes it. From now on, if she wants something, she just has to ask. He'll pay for it. He knows things could have gone badly, but thanks to Lucio, they survived and beat the sirens. Of course, he still makes sure to mention he landed plenty of hits on the queen. Then he tells her to enjoy herself. She earned it. After all, he now has 633,000 points, which is about $6 million. Even after spending 150,000 on Zeus's power, he still made a huge profit. Now he's actually getting interested in fighting monsters, and that reminds him of the hunter exam. Lucio asks what that is, and he jokes that it's fried pork, and tells her to dip it in the sauce. While they keep eating, she says it's delicious, so he tells her the whole plate is hers. Too lazy to keep dipping, she just pours all the sauce over it, and he immediately bonks her on the head for having no manners. Later, they get back home completely worn out. She ate a ton, and he tells her she went way too far. He's been working nonstop and starts thinking about taking a break, but then the doorbell rings and someone asks if he's home. He drags himself over and says he's coming. At the door, someone in a mask, glasses, and beanie asks if he's Ha-Jun Lee. Our boy instantly thinks it's some creep and slams the door, saying he's not buying anything. The stranger keeps insisting, and Hagen gets annoyed. What kind of door-to-door salesman knows your full name? Lucio asks who it is, and he says some pushy salesman. Outside, the guy keeps pounding on the door, saying he knows exactly who Ha-Jun Lee is, the divine courier. Now MC is in trouble. He opens the door and sees Seonjin holding a huge sword. Our boy asks why he's here, and Seonjin says it's simple. He wants to recruit him into the Yangwen Guild. Later at a cafe, Seonjin says before they talk business, there's something he wants to give him for helping last time. Hagen takes it and instantly gets 500,000. Easy money. Smugly he says there was no need to give him that much. Seonjin tells him not to worry and says they should get down to business. If he joins the guild, he'll get a 200,000 signing bonus and 300,000 a year. He'd also earn extra based on his work. Seonjin asks what he thinks. Sure, no hunter would turn down money like that. Back at the hospital, Dui Yim told him Hajin wasn't even a real hunter. He didn't have a license. Even so, he was making deliveries inside Tartarus, beat the 8 trigrams, and somehow got dragged into another dungeon. Licensed or not, bringing him in would make the guild a fortune. Seonjin is fired up, but the boy apologizes and refuses. Money Seonjin is pumped until our boy apologizes and says he's going to decline. The idiot was already talking like it was settled, but Hajin tells him again he's not taking the deal. Outside, Seonjin desperately says they can change the offer, but our guy says he doesn't want to join any guild. The guild leader asks what could possibly be better than an offer that big. He holds up his phone and says the answer is simple: deliveries. As soon as he accepts a request, a bright flash blinds Seonjin and the boy disappears. Next, they're in the mountains, and Lucio points out he was supposed to be resting today. Sweating hard, he says that was the idea. He didn't expect the customer to be all the way on top of a mountain. Normally, taking a request teleports him right to the customer. But this time he got dropped at the bottom and has to climb the rest himself. He blames Seonjin for wasting his time with that guild pitch when he never wanted in. He may have suits with cooldowns, but he doesn't really have powers, and deliveries pay way better anyway, so Seonjin can forget it. After a while, they finally make it to the top. They're both worn out when his face suddenly goes serious. In front of him are huge black slimes covered in eyes. He wonders what the hell this thing is, and Lucio says she has no clue either. Then he steps on one of them and gets the same feeling as that creature from the dungeon. He asks if she knows any myth creature like this, but she doesn't. Just as she says she might have an idea, the ground shakes. A monster rises behind him, and he thinks they're done for. Then a golden figure rushes in and throws one punch, blowing it apart. Startled, he hears the man complain he's too old for fights like this. The scarred man sighs that his body isn't what it used to be, then speaks into his radio and says he's heard a lot about the kid. Our boy is shocked by the legend standing there and wonders if this is the client. He asks Lucio who the guy is, and she says of course she knows. He's the hero who completed the 12 labors given by Hera, the one who helped the gods beat the giants, Hercules. Embarrassed, the hero says that old story makes him shy. The boy then realizes this is also the man who shot the poisoned arrow into Chiron's leg. Hercules asks if he was the one who helped Chiron recover. Awkwardly, he says the Hydra did the work, not him. Hercules slaps his back, nearly breaking the suit, and says he's still grateful. He confirms Lucio was right. He's Hercules, a demigod from the past who now protects Olympus. Skipping a long intro, the boy and Lucio just give their names. Hercules explains he called them because he needs help. When asked with what, he points to a cave and tells them to look. During the giant attack, that cave turned into a gateway for monsters entering Olympus. Lately, strange tentacle creatures have been coming out, and he's never seen anything like them, so he thinks they may be from another world. The boy suspects this is tied to the monster from the dungeon. Hercules says the job is simple: find out where the monsters are coming from. Right then, a mission pops up with a 24-hour limit. If he fails or cancels, he'll lose 200,000 coins. What the hell? But one look at Hercules' huge muscles, and he quickly says he'll do his best to solve it fast. Hercules says he's exactly like his wife Abby described. That makes him remember Abby was the first Ditz who opened the door for his very first delivery. He starts thinking about how weirdly connected all these myths are. Then the system says it will guide him, but the map looks off. He stares at a cliff and asks how he's supposed to go that way. Hercules grabs him and says not to worry, he'll get him there fast. Before he can answer, he's already been thrown. Back at Sangjin's guild, Doyeon rushes in calling for the guildmaster. The leader tells him not to burst into the office, but Doyeon immediately asks how things went with the delivery guy. He says it was a total rejection, the kid barely even listened. Doyeon thinks that's strange since the offer would change anyone's life, but Sangjin says the guy literally vanished. Doyeon thinks that's a weak excuse, but Sangjin says maybe not. After all, Hyjin appeared in that dungeon the same way. And after everything, he even got a message from Ares himself confirming he sent that item. Sangjin says he'll try recruiting the kid again. Meanwhile, he's just sitting there playing Dark Souls. Then Doyeon notices his sword still looks brand new. Once he got Ares' sword, he sold the old one for a huge price. He planned to use some of that money to recruit the boy, but that clearly failed. Doyeon says he may have missed the news, a buyer from Japan wants it. The leader says then it's time to get the shipment ready, because lately whenever a super expensive item gets sold, thieves hit it in transit. That sword is too valuable to risk losing. He starts thinking about hiring someone, and then remembers the boy is a courier. Smiling, he says he just got an idea. Back with our guy, Hercules sends him into the ravine. He's completely twisted up, wondering why he had to get launched like that. Then the system says he's almost there. Afraid he'll break every bone, he pulls out his little motorcycle in midair. Riding Duke, he speeds straight down, then crashes hard. Smoke rises, but the bike's crazy shock absorbers save him. He knows that's the only reason they lived. Hercules almost got them both killed. He even tells Lucio, who passed out, to wake up because they made it. Now the problem is, he has no clue what he's even looking for. He starts complaining about searching for something he can't even name, when a giant foot slams onto his back. The whole area shakes, and Lucio grabs his leg, trying to figure out what's happening. He remembers the same kind of quake happened when they met that dungeon monster. Then he hears someone say Hercules' name. Confused, he looks back and sees a man carrying something huge on his back. If he's right, that's Atlas. The guy absolutely towers over him. He can't believe there's a giant down here. Atlas asks if he knows Hercules. Crooked under the pressure, the boy explains Hercules hired him to investigate the area. The moment he mentions the monsters, Atlas starts laughing. Carrying a glowing sphere, he says Hercules must be desperate if he sent someone like this. But the boy wants answers. Why is a giant down here, and what's with the giant ball? So he boldly asks if Atlas knows anything about what's happening. Atlas says he has no reason to help him or Hercules. He asks Lucio why the giant seems so angry, and she can't believe he doesn't know. This is Atlas, the Titan forced to carry the celestial sphere after the Titans lost the Great War, and that punishment came from Zeus, Hercules' father. So yeah, that explains the grudge. He thinks Hercules really should have warned him about all this drama. Atlas asks if they're done talking, and the boy is shocked the giant heard everything. Atlas says, just like the nymph said, the monsters on Earth have nothing to do with him. Now Hajin is stuck in another god-level mess when he was only trying to make deliveries. For some reason, he tries acting cute and asks if Atlas can really say no to this adorable face. Atlas tells him to shut up before he gets crushed. But the boy says he won't ask for free. If Atlas gives him the truth, he'll do any favor in return. That makes the Titan's face change, and Lucio panics, saying he's being way too reckless. Atlas laughs, saying it's absurd. A human can't possibly do a favor for a god, but our boy just says he might be surprised. The Titan thinks it over, then agrees. For a human, he's got guts, so Atlas wants a golden apple. If he can bring one back without dying, then he'll deserve to hear what the slimes are planning. Lucio instantly says that's impossible and tells him not to accept. Golden apples are incredibly rare. They only grow on Gaia's trees, and gods usually give them as wedding gifts. Before she can keep going, he covers her mouth. Then he asks Atlas, "That's really all you want?" He suddenly remembers Atlas isn't a god. He's a Titan. Atlas confirms it and gives his word, but our boy pushes further and tells him to swear by the river Styx. In myth, if a god breaks an oath made on that river, they lose their power for a time. Atlas smirks and holds out his pinky, impressed. Still, he agrees and swears by the river Styx. Our boy pulls out his phone and says, now he can't take it back. Since a golden apple only costs 1,000 points, Atlas is basically doomed. He buys one from the shop, and a golden apple appears in his hand. He holds it up right away and says, here's your order. Atlas just stares, looking completely dumbfounded, like this brat has to be joking. Outside the cave, purple slimes are crawling everywhere. Hercules keeps smashing everyone that comes out, while wondering why Hajin and Lucio are taking so long. Then it hits him. Did he even mention Atlas? He brushes it off, figuring they'll manage somehow. Then a blue flash appears in the distance. Someone rushes in at top speed. It's our boy, tearing through the sky on his motorcycle as the suit fuses with it. He gets there so fast, Hercules is ready to praise him, until the bike wheel smashes him right in the face. Yeah, he just crashed into a god. He stands there awkwardly, though honestly it feels a little intentional after getting tossed earlier. A little later, he's flat on the ground apologizing and claiming it was an accident. Hercules says it doesn't matter, the kid couldn't really hurt him anyway. But our boy points out his face says otherwise. Even with his face and finger bent up, Hercules insists he's totally fine. With his arms crossed, Hercules says, Hajin came back too fast to learn anything. That trip had to be pointless. Thinking back, he's sure Atlas is still furious about the time he stole a bunch of golden apples, which is honestly pretty low when the guy can't even set that giant sphere down. So Hercules says since Hajin at least tried, he won't punish him. Until our boy casually says Atlas told him everything. Hercules doesn't buy it at first, but then the kid reaches behind him and pulls out a golden apple, saying that's what got Atlas talking. Then we jump back to the cave right when Hajin showed the apple. Atlas was stunned and demanded to know how a human got one. Our boy honestly says you can buy it with one click in the shop. Atlas tells him to hand it over, but he flat out refuses. He says he doesn't want to get scammed, so Atlas has to talk first. The Titan argues that wasn't the deal, but our boy raises the apple like he's about to bite it. Back in the present, Hajin says that's how he got Atlas to spill everything. Hercules realizes this kid really isn't normal. No wonder he could fix his mentor's leg. The problem is that shameless attitude reminds him way too much of his younger self. In the end, he just tells him to give the information already. Our boy says Atlas spoke in riddles, so he didn't fully get it either. Then he repeats it. The earth will split into 7 parts, and blue flames will appear here and there. Hercules starts sweating at once. This is worse than he feared. Just as he thought, these creatures came from another world and the one place he didn't want. Now he remembers. Hajin is one of the few people who can move between the human world and the myth world, and somehow fate put an ordinary nymph right beside him too. To him, the three goddesses of fate are cruel and beautiful. He can't understand why they'd place such a heavy load on a young human boy. Now even I'm curious. Then our boy holds out his hand and Hercules asks what he wants. Hajin says he shouldn't have to explain. It should be obvious. He finished the delivery, so now it's time to get paid. Later, while Hercules sits on top of the dead monsters, someone suddenly appears and asks what he thinks of the kid after meeting him in person. It's Hermes, waving as he says he got there after the two had already left. Hercules speaks to him respectfully, but Hermes says that's not needed. Even so, the big guy says he can't treat him casually. Hermes helped him a lot during the 12 labors. Hermes sighs and says he's not here to chat. He also tells Hercules to stop ignoring Ares, but Hercules just shrugs. That guy always picks fights and disrespects him, so he stopped talking to him. Hermes laughs, saying Hercules really is bad at making friends, then asks if things are still bad with Atlas. Hercules instantly says there's no way he's going down there to apologize to that bastard. Then Hermes asks if the place Atlas described to the kid is the one they both mean. Hercules repeats the riddle about the land splitting and fire, and says it has to be that place because the prophecy matches it exactly. Hermes raises his staff ready to leave, saying they need to start preparing. He says he'll warn everyone, but Hercules tells him not to bother. He says the kid is the one tied to all this, but Hermes just grins and tells him to relax. That kind of message is his job. Then he takes off, telling Hercules to greet the old man for him. After he leaves, Hercules powers up and looks over the creatures, saying it's finally time to deal with them. Back with Hagen, Lucio is dead asleep. Our boy yanks the blanket off her. She sits up half asleep, mumbling for 5 more minutes. He tells her to get moving now, they have to go. Still groggy, she asks where they're headed this early, and he reminds her it's the hunter exam today. Still confused, she says she remembers him mentioning it but has no clue what a hunter exam even is. He calls her an idiot for agreeing to come without knowing that, and she just says staying home is boring. Meanwhile, he's already packed everything, his registration card, supplies, and of course the wooden bat. Lucio shows up with messy hair like a broom and says she's ready too. He throws on a cap and tells her to hurry up. At the association, the two arrive and look around at all the flashy hunters, while our boy looks like a regular nobody. But under the hoodie, the sneaky bastard came prepared. A man with a mic announces the exam has begun and calls the first numbers forward. The first candidate faces 3 goblins with a huge axe in hand. The goblins rush him and he cuts one clean in half. Our boy thinks 3 goblins is way too easy. Any normal person could beat that. So he figures the test isn't about whether you can kill, but how you do it. Then they call number 38, him. So yeah, the hunter exam is basically an octagon fight. Standing inside, our boy plans to pass quietly without drawing attention. But the moment his suit activates, a red-haired recruiter in the crowd notices him. It's that woman from the enemy guild, the dangerous one. Then the chapter jumps away from him for a moment. Another guy destroys the goblins with his bare hands and everyone starts hyping him up. But a chubby guy eating chips says strength alone isn't enough. He still lacks what a hunter really needs. The blonde beside him agrees, saying maybe the real standout still hasn't appeared. The redhead tells both old guys to shut up, then says these fighters aren't even good enough for a second-rate guild. It's Johann, the same woman who caused chaos with the Black Dragon Guild. Pretty wild. She slaughtered hunters and wrecked everything. And now she's calmly judging rookies. She's wondering how it all ended up like this. Not long ago, Black Dragon was the second best guild in the country. And with that dragon tattoo on her thigh, she had real influence. But after the scandal with the 8 trigrams, the guild lost a ton of support. Now she's stuck scouting new members and hoping to find at least one decent recruit. Then candidate 38 gets called. Lucio cheers from a distance while our boy stands there awkwardly. He wants to pass, but he really doesn't want to stand out and make life harder. The goblins rush him while he's trying to stay unnoticed, but his suit's danger sense kicks in and he dodges at the last second. He quickly notices these things are much slower than the sirens he fought. Honestly, he could probably dodge them even without the suit. The redhead watches closely and says, number 38 moves in an interesting way. At the same time, she feels like there's something familiar about him. He still hasn't attacked, he's just dodging with ease. After a while, he decides to throw one punch, just enough to kill them without making a scene. But the second his fist lands, the goblin turns to dust right in front of him. She instantly knows who he is, the one she came to find. A little later, someone congratulates him and hands over his badge. Turns out, he got the 3rd highest score ever. They say he's bound to become a top hunter and congratulate him again. Haijin thinks becoming a hunter felt way too easy for such a big deal. Lucio runs up, praising him for the fight, then says it's time to eat. He grabs her and says they're getting pork. Then someone steps in. She politely introduces herself and says it's nice to meet him. With red hair and red eyes, she names herself Juhan from the Black Dragon Guild. He recognizes her right away and knows she's bad news. She says his fight impressed her and starts asking if he'd join Black Dragon. Before she can finish, he walks right past her and says he's not interested. Stunned, she tells him to wait, but he only thanks her and says he doesn't plan to join any guild. She refuses to let him go. Someone like him could help put her guild back on top, so she quickly offers 5 billion won, about $5 million plus a bonus. Heijin stops for a second, and she thinks she finally got him. He repeats the amount, and she confirms it. Sure, that's enough to win him over. Instead, he looks at her like she's clueless, and asks if Black Dragon is really that broke. Lucio adds that they just sound cheap. He keeps walking while she chases after him, yelling that he won't get a better offer. Heijin calmly says he already has. Then he drops the bomb. Shang Jun's guild offered 20 billion. She freezes on the spot. He leaves her standing there completely crushed. Sometime later, he and Lucio make it to a restaurant. The TV is already talking about a promising new hunter. He's shocked. It's only been an hour since the test and he's already on the news. He tells Lucio to order and calls the waiter, but before he can react, the food is already being set on their table. It's Sang Jun, saying the service is fast and the food is great. Heijin sighs and asks if this guy plans to keep tailing him. Sang Jun insists it's just a coincidence. They just happen to run into each other. The MC cuts him off and says if this is about joining the guild, the answer is no. Sang Jun tries bringing up the hunter exam, but Heijin shuts that down too, saying it has nothing to do with this. He wants a quiet life, so joining a guild and getting more attention is the last thing he wants. Then Sang Jun says he's got it wrong. This isn't a recruitment pitch. He wants to hire him as the divine courier. He explains there's an item that must be delivered to Japan in 2 days. The trouble is, dangerous women have been stealing shipments. He admits delivery work is his specialty, even if he doesn't like bragging. Still, he gives him a look and says, the pay better be worth it. Sang Jun tells him not to worry. The offer will satisfy him. When Heijin sees the 2, he assumes it means 200 million. Sang Jun corrects him. It's 2 billion. Instantly, Heijin slams his face on the table and promises the delivery will be flawless. While Lucio keeps eating, Sang Jun says he fully trusts Heijin's delivery skills. Then the story cuts to an apartment, where a girl on the floor says to just give the order. Herms. Yeah, this already feels shady. In the next scene, they're aboard a huge cargo ship. Lucio is blown away, and our boy explains the whole thing belongs to the Young One Guild. He never expected to be somewhere like this. It feels more like guarding cargo than making a delivery. Then 2 guards stop him and ask for ID. He casually shows his black card and says he's there for the Young One Guild. The guard sees the VIP card and immediately lets him through. Later, as they move deeper into the ship, Lucio says it's huge, though still smaller than the Argonauts Company ship. Heijin laughs at how proud she is of Olympus. Then they reach a container sealed with a heavy security lock. The sword has to be inside. It sticks out way too much, but once he confirms it and the door opens, he gets why they didn't bother hiding it. The sword is trapped behind bars, chains, and every security measure possible. He thinks it's strange who would even dare try stealing something this protected. Lucio looks surprised, so he asks if she knows this weapon. Of course she does. She says it's Durandal, the legendary sword. Heijin admits she knows her stuff, then cuts her off before she can boast. Yeah, he gets it. She's some super special nymph. Lucio asks what they do now, and he says they stay here and make sure the sword arrives safely. The problem is it's boring, but he can't risk losing those 2 billion. It sounds like a lot for one job, but if the sword gets stolen, they'd be paying for something worth far more. Then a horn sounds. The ship is finally leaving. At that exact moment, a strange gas starts filling the container. Outside, the heavily armed guards stay weirdly calm, then the gas reaches them and they drop to the floor. At that point, anyone could just take their weapons. That's when a dangerous-looking woman in a tight outfit appears. With a sparkle in her eyes, she cheerfully says Phase 1 is complete. Inside the container, our boy is already out cold. Then flick. A sharp snap hits his forehead. Lucio wakes him and he jumps up, shocked he passed out so easily. She tells him strange smoke spread through the ship, and now everyone is asleep. He quickly covers his nose, wondering if it's some kind of sleeping gas. He checks the sword first. Thankfully, it's still there. What's strange is his suit should have protected him from something like this. So maybe the thief used a special power. When he opens the door, he sees a woman standing there, arms crossed, praying. She's asking the gods for strength so she can be an honest thief tonight. He already knows this girl is ridiculous. Without wasting time, he opens the store menu. Buying the right item would lock down the mission, but then the thief moves. A green flash cuts through the air. A rope wraps around her arm and she instantly realizes it isn't normal. It's binding her like a web. When she looks back, Hagen casually says he caught a little thief. The item he bought was Raken's rope, a powerful binding rope that snaps if too much force is used. Now the thief is crying on the floor, saying the gas came from her god. So how is he still awake? He bonks her on the head and calls her an annoying thief who asks too many questions. The girl says she's not a thief and begs him to let her explain why she needs the sword. But Hagen just smirks, saying he's not stupid. She's clearly here to steal from the guild. She accepts being called a thief, but says she only steals what must be stolen. It's all for a greater good. Hagen laughs and she asks if he's ever heard of Robin Hood, the honest thief. She says that's exactly what she's like, taking from those with too much and giving to those with too little. Neither Hagen nor Lucio buys any of it. He says she needs professional help, and Lucio adds that old people can be weird. Then the girl suddenly shouts that he has to believe her. Hermes sent her to recover these items, and that sword must go back to its rightful owner to prepare for the threats ahead. Hagen is surprised while Lucio comments that maybe this girl really is an emissary of that god. Hagen is surprised while Lucio says maybe she really is an emissary of that god. He still thinks she looks way too sloppy for that, but tells her to explain these so-called threats. Suddenly she spits an orb from her mouth and says she didn't want to use it like this, but she has no choice. She warns him he'll pay for interfering today. Purple smoke spreads across the ship, and the second it clears, she's gone. Already swimming away, she complains that this was a waste because those pills cost a fortune. What she used was an astral form elixir, letting her take astral form. That's it. She swears she'll get even with that tight suit jerk. Honestly, her outfit is even tighter. Her name is Suyin Choi. She reaches the dock muttering that it was way too close and now the elixir is gone. Even then, she's still thinking about him and swearing she'll wipe that smug look off his face. Then a message pops up, asking if the mission succeeded. She thanks Hermes and says it was close, but she got the item he wanted. She successfully stole the Ring of Dissipation, a legendary artifact from King Arthur's tales. Hermes asks what exactly happened. She says she used the gas he gave her, but one person didn't go down. The god says that's impossible and demands to know who it was. She describes a guy in a tight hero suit who used a rope that felt like a mythical item to bind her. Right away, Hermes says, that sounds familiar, and asks if a child was with him. She confirms there was a small girl with sky blue hair. She's confused how the god guessed so perfectly, so that guy really was important. Then Ares cuts in, laughing at the coincidence. He tells her not to worry, that person was chosen. She relaxes, glad they're on the same side. Then she stops and reaches a conclusion. Since they'll meet again, she'll personally teach him to respect his senior. Meanwhile, Hagen receives his 2 billion won. Just like the guild expected, one strange person showed up and threw the whole job into chaos. Durandal made it to Japan safely, so Hagen's job was finished. At least his apartment was paid off now, so he decided to visit Hephaestus. It had been a while since they last met. He also wanted to know what could be done with the Hydra scale he got. At his workshop, Hagen knocks on the door. He notices the lights are off and the guy still hasn't shown up. Lucio quickly says they should leave and get food instead, but then someone calls Hagen's name. He turns around and nearly jumps out of his skin. It's Hephaestus, and one look at him tells Hagen someone dangerous is here. The protagonist points to a powerful woman and says she's the divine courier. She smiles and greets him. Then he introduces her as Phrygia, leader of the Valkyries, the one who even taught magic to Odin himself. But MC totally gets the wrong idea and thinks his friend is cheating on his wife. He grabs Hephaestus by the collar and asks if he thinks he's turned into Zeus. MC hurriedly says she's just a client. The woman laughs, saying Hagen must be quite something to assume she was having an affair with him. The dwarf stays calm while our boy ends up face down, apologizing. Once that's over, he says they should get to business. He wants Hagen to deliver a letter. The job is to take it to the ruler of Helheim and look into the strange events in Valhalla. He has 120 hours and will get 500,000 points. Hagen repeats the names, confused, while Lucio starts shaking. She explains that's the Norse land of the dead, which means this mission will be insanely dangerous. Now that he's rich, Hagen really doesn't want to risk his life. Why die with all that money still sitting in his account? He could retire right now and live comfortably with Lucio. Hephaestus says Helheim is probably too dangerous for him, but before he can finish, Hagen cuts in. No, he's absolutely taking the job. No way he's turning down more money. He boldly says he'll handle it perfectly. Lucio kicks him in the back for thinking only about cash. Soon they're already in the mountains near a green lake. Hagen tears across the land on his motorcycle, and the whole place feels wrong. Makes sense. It's the afterlife. Lucio says he only accepted because he has no clue how brutal and dangerous Norse mythology really is. He tells her she used to be much quieter, and maybe she should go back to that. She snaps that it's his fault. Every delivery with him feels like it cuts a year off her life. In Norse myth, Valhalla is where warriors who die in battle go. Helheim is for ordinary people and the dishonorable. So yeah, no wonder everyone wants to fight. Either you get paradise or a nightmare. He remembers Freya said she'd been getting news from Helheim, so things should be fine. He tells Lucio to relax. Honestly, that only makes him more suspicious. With 10 minutes left before arrival, he keeps riding across a narrow bridge. Halfway through, something suddenly feels off. His chest tightens. The air changes completely, freezing him to the core. Lucio says she can't move, and he realizes he can't either. Then a voice speaks nearby. Amazing, a living soul crossing the bridge of Helheim. Yep, another woman. The giant stares down at them and says something about them is strange. The girl doesn't smell like death, but the boy already died once. He freezes and asks her to say that again. And just like that, we get a tragic flashback. He's riding his bike through the rain, knowing deliveries in weather like this are asking for trouble. But his landlord keeps texting, warning he'll get kicked out if he doesn't pay rent, so he has no choice but to keep working. Then a car cuts him off. He swerves onto the sidewalk and barely avoids crashing. He's about to yell at the driver when he notices all his deliveries scattered across the road. Now he's even more screwed, because he'll have to pay for the damages too. While he's looking at his phone, a horn suddenly blares. In the heavy rain, a truck driver doesn't see him. And just like that, Hagen Lee dies at 27. For some reason his funeral even used a drooling photo of him. Back in the present, he mutters that this woman is trying to kill him with shock. She says he smells like rotting flesh, so claiming he never died is ridiculous. Lucio suggests the smell might have stuck to him when he went to Tartarus, like how nymphs near water smell fresh, sea nymphs smell fishy, and waterfall nymphs smell like moss. Tartarus and Helheim come from different myths, but both are lands of the dead. He sniffs himself and smells nothing, but then remembers the Hydra once said she could smell spirits on him. The woman nods and says that fits. She's heard of a mortal who met Hades in the depths of Tartarus. If that's true, then he should know who she is. The one guarding this passage. He has no idea, and he's still stuck on whether that flashback was real. Lucio, though, knows exactly who this is. There's only one bridgekeeper known as the Warrior of Wrath. She says this woman must be Mongud. Mongud praises her for knowing that, then asks why they want to cross. Lucio bluntly says Freya sent them to deliver a letter to Hel. The second Mongud hears Freya's name. She understands. If it's for Freya, they may pass. Hagen moves fast before she can change her mind. Watching them leave, Mongud thinks it's strange that woman sent a mortal and a nymph. These two are heading into a brutal journey. He speeds up, finally nearing Helheim, but then the cold becomes unbearable, the kind of cold that freezes everything. Lucio sneezes and sprays him. He glares at her, already annoyed that Freya never warned them to bring warm clothes. Lucio suddenly remembers Helheim is freezing because the dead don't feel cold. He asks why she didn't say that sooner. She shrugs and says she can't remember everything. Does he remember all of school? Then she tells him to stop whining and buy something from the special shop. Grumbling, he opens the store. There's a baby wolf fur coat, but it costs 200,000 points. It gives amazing warmth, but he still thinks it's insane when his motorcycle only cost 100,000. Still, he has no choice. He buys it, dropping 200,000 points. At least he still has 600,000 left. After putting it on, he tells himself he'll get at least 500,000 back once the mission is done. Then he notices Lucio is wrapped up in a coat too, smiling. He didn't expect it to cover her too, then figures it must work like an area effect that protects nearby people. The next second, he speeds up again, determined to finish this fast, now that the cold doesn't bother him. But after a while, they're still trapped in the snowstorm, and it's getting worse. The coat keeps him warm, but the bike is slowing down. Worse, the map stops working too, so they stop behind a big rock. Lucio says if they kept going, they'd probably get buried. He tells her to quit being dramatic. He only stopped to check if his signal came back. This guy is seriously obsessed with deliveries. He still has 41 hours left, but after checking the map, he realizes they'll barely make it if nothing delays them. Lucio suddenly asks if he's not dumb enough to fall asleep out here, right? But she's actually pointing at something strange coming their way. He steps out from behind the rock to look and feels heavy footsteps shaking the ground. He expects some kind of monster. Instead, it's a muscular guy in a Speedo sprinting at them. The man yells for them to run if they want to live. A pack of wolves is chasing him. Now Hagen is furious. This idiot led the wolves straight to them. The chase starts with the Speedo guy running for his life while MC floors the bike. He tries to ask the man something, but the guy cuts him off, saying he can't talk while fighting for breath. What shocks Hagen more is that this man is keeping up with the turbo bike. Both he and Lucio yell, asking why he brought the wolves here. The man says he just wanted to say hi, since all he's seen in this place is snow and wolves. That answer is not helping. Lucio tells him to turn around and get eaten by himself. Then Hagen spots a cabin in the blizzard, the perfect chance to recover. So he charges through the gate on his bike and rushes inside. The weird guy shouts for them to wait, but seeing the wolves right behind him, Hagen hesitates. If he lets him in, they could all get torn apart. So he slams the door in the guy's face. Cold as ever, he just thinks he gave the guy a chance to earn some survival points. But the man yells back that he won't die that easily. Then this lunatic leaps over the wall in a single 30-meter jump. Lucio is completely stunned. He lands right in front of Hadrian and smirks, telling him not to look so shocked if there's no barrier. A real man can't beat. Hadrian can't lie, that speech actually kind of gets to him. The Speedo guy walks up, ready to introduce himself, but Hadrian cuts him off and says there's no need. He ignores that and proudly announces he's Sigurd, descendant of Odin, and a famous warrior of the Valsson family. With no better option, Hadrian says it's nice to meet him. Sigurd says the same, but Lucio already knows exactly who he is. She lights up like a fan meeting a celebrity and blurts out that he's the legendary hero Lufafnir. If this half-naked guy really killed a giant dragon, he's absurdly strong. Lucio explains his title is the Dragon Slayer. The shameless guy acts humble, saying the stories are exaggerated, but Hadrian can already tell he loves the attention. Sigurd says they shouldn't stay out in the cold and should head into the cabin. Hadrian is still wary since he has no idea who owns it. Sigurd just points out that standing outside to be eaten by wolves would be even dumber. Fair enough. After all that running, Hadrian checks the map and sees they're much closer now, so resting a bit might not be a bad idea. Inside the cabin, they settle in by the fire. Sigurd asks who they are and what brought them here. Hadrian says he's delivering something to someone very far away. Sigurd looks puzzled, saying it's his first time seeing a courier in Helheim. Then Hadrian asks why he didn't just kill the wolves if he's really the Dragon Slayer. Lucio agrees it would have been easier to just wipe them out, but Sigurd reminds them of one key thing. They're in Helheim. Inside, Hadrian thinks the castle looks pretty normal for the underworld. Then Sigurd suddenly stops as a maid named Ganglut appears. Before they can speak, she already knows why they're here, with companions, carrying a letter from Freya, and planning to ask for an escort to Hel. Ganglut cuts him off and says that's already been arranged. They follow her through the halls, and Hadrian asks Lucio if she's a goddess or some myth hero. Lucio says neither. She's just served Hel for a very long time. Lucio praises Ganglut for serving the same goddess for so long, and even asks for advice. The maid says nothing, which starts to annoy Lucio. What she doesn't know is Ganglut is internally panicking over how cute she is. They reach a huge door, and Ganglut says Hel is inside. Sigurd steps back, saying this is where he leaves, then reminds Hagen to hand over the letter. When the door opens, our boy gets nervous. The pressure in the room feels totally different from any god he's met. This one rules the underworld. As they enter, Ganglut introduces them. Hel giggles and immediately comments on his strange aura, neither living nor dead. She says he must be the one causing trouble in Helheim. Hagen quickly says he's only here to deliver a letter and leave. Then the letter is suddenly snatched from his hand, ending up in Ololi's tiny hands. He was expecting the ruler of the underworld to look terrifying, not like this. She instantly asks if what's written inside is true, but Hagen says he has no clue, he was only hired to deliver it. When he asks why she's so curious, Lucio quickly warns him not to talk to a goddess like that. Helheim leans on her throne and says he's brave since most people are scared of her. So she decides to answer. Valhalla is under attack and the invaders are pretending to be from Helheim. But she never gave that order, which means someone else is behind it. She says only one race across all realms and myths could fight against destiny itself. Then she repeats the riddle about the land splitting into 7 parts and blue flames rising. She knows exactly who's behind it, while Hagen is kind of let down that Helheim's ruler is just a little girl. Now it makes sense why Ganglut is so devoted to staying by her side. A little later, Hel leans back on her throne and asks if they've left. Ganglut says yes, and that she opened a portal to send them straight to Olympus. Hel mutters that Freya's sense of humor is something else, sending a human into the land of the dead. But Ganglut corrects her. That man isn't ordinary. He's the divine courier, known among mythological beings for taking points as payment. Hel thinks for a moment and says she gets it now. At least thanks to him, she confirmed those creatures really exist. Then she tells Ganglut to get ready for departure, which confuses her. Hel declares that this time she'll go herself. Back with Hephaestus, he asks Hadrian if that's really what she said, wondering if he heard wrong. But Hadrian insists he heard correctly, and Lucio backs him up. She was standing right there. Freya brings up the prophecy again, the one about the 7 sections of land, and says she never expected it to become real. Hadrian wants to know why everyone is taking it so seriously. He remembers Hercules reacting the same way the moment he mentioned it. Freya says goodbye to Hephaestus, and tells him she'll come back for the item later, since this is more urgent. She wishes she never heard about it, but now that she has to spread the word. She can't understand how things got this bad without anyone noticing. Maybe someone has been hiding the truth and pulling strings from the shadows, just like Ragnarok. Then Hagen grabs her shoulder. With a blank look, he asks if she's forgetting something. The protagonist panics and calls him insane for stopping a goddess, but Hagen refuses to let her leave without paying him. This time Freya isn't smiling. She glares at him and calls him insolent for touching her without permission. The air turns heavy and Hagen starts shaking, not from the cold, from pure pressure. Even so, he still won't leave empty-handed. He starts dancing and chanting, money or revolt. Yeah, this guy is seriously missing a few screws. Standing beside him, Lucio says studies show this pose raises your chances of getting paid by 99%. Freya stares for a second, then sighs. She really had forgotten. So our boy gets 500,000 points plus another 250,000 as a bonus, and quickly thanks her. That officially puts him at 1 million points. He's basically a millionaire now. Right after that, Lucio double drop kicks him in the back, calling him a money-crazy maniac. Freya just laughs and says those two are a complete mess. She apologizes for getting heated earlier, while Hephaestus only sighs and tells Hagen he can't tell if he's stupid or just clueless. Hagen asks what he did. The dwarf brushes it off and says a real man needs courage anyway. Then Hagen asks about the prophecy of the 7 lands. Since everyone reacts like it's terrifying, even Hercules did. MC is shocked. Hagen has already talked to Hercules. After hearing the full story, the dwarf yells that he should have said this much sooner. Hagen shrugs and says nobody asked. Besides, he doesn't even know how to reach the place everyone keeps talking about. Hephaestus thinks it over and says that explains why the gods' council is being called. That gathering is known as the Council of the Olympians. The last one was 389 years ago, so now he understands why he's been summoned again. Hagen pushes for more, but the dwarf cuts him off and tells him to forget what he's heard. Just knowing this much is already dangerous, so he shouldn't ask anything else. Still curious, Hagen says he doesn't get why everyone is hiding so much. Hephaestus simply says this is something only gods can deal with. If fate allows it, he'll learn more someday, but if he wants to stay alive, he needs to stop digging. He thinks it would have been better if Hagen knew nothing. Sometime later, Back in the city, Lucio tells Hagen to open the door already, so she can sit down and rest. He types in the passcode, and they finally come home, happier than ever. The apartment they've been paying for is finally theirs. Looking around, Hagen thinks it finally feels like his place now that the old owner's furniture is gone. Lucio immediately claims a room, but Hagen takes the biggest one for himself. She refuses to accept that, and demands they settle it fairly with rock, paper, scissors. Instead, Hagen grabs her arm, says no chance, and heads for the door to buy furniture. Right then, someone knocks. He pauses, confused. They just got here, so who already knows his address? He grabs the knob, tells them to wait, and opens the door to find Erin. She's there holding a large cake. Hagen asks what she's doing here, and Lucio instantly recognizes her from the dungeons. Then he remembers she was supposed to move in next door, so it finally clicks. Erin lifts the big cake and says it's for the Divine Courier. Hagen takes it and asks what it is. She says it's a rice cake and explains she wanted to throw him a welcome party, but our boy turns her down right away, saying he just got home and now isn't a good time. The poor girl looks crushed. Meanwhile, a starving Lucio asks if they're supposed to eat that whole cake. Before Hagen can answer, Lucio snatches the cake and runs, stuffing her face. She says it's his fault since she barely ate all day. But the moment she tastes it, she starts throwing up. Hagen asks what happened. Lucio says it tastes like chocolate, dirty water, and toothpaste all at once. Hagen tells her that's what happens when she steals food meant for someone else. Erin just takes a bite and calmly says she's always liked mint chocolate. She's completely relaxed in his apartment while MC is still wondering why she really came. He finally asks, and she explains the guild is looking into something. Seligman sent her to speak with him, so he realizes they're trying to hire him as an investigator. He asks what they're offering, but Erin says the details have to come from the guild leader. Not wanting to meet Seligman again, Hagen asks her to at least tell him the pay range. She raises 2 fingers and he guesses, 2 billion? Then she lifts 2 more. 4 billion. His whole face changes. All right, where's the leader? Let's talk. A little later, they're in a parking garage. Sitting in Erin's car, he thanks her for the ride, but Lucio starts complaining. They were supposed to go buy furniture today, not take another job. Hagen says he's only hearing the offer. He promises they'll shop right after, but she keeps whining. According to Lucio, the plan was furniture first, then good food. That is, until Erin hands her a ticket. She says Lucio can use it at the guild cafeteria, where they serve all kinds of good food. Lucio brightens up instantly. Hagen glances back and sees how huge the guild building is. No wonder they're the strongest in the country. A bit later, Sanjin greets him with a big smile. He even apologizes for not bringing a gift, but Hagen cuts him off and tells him to get to the point. He doesn't want to waste time, especially with his partner already eager to leave. Sanjin says that's fine and asks him to sit. As usual, Hagen is already irritated by how friendly this guy acts. Then Sanjin gets to the problem. The paper says it's about reevaluating dungeon difficulty. Sanjin says Hagen has seen this before. Dungeons suddenly spawning strange monsters and becoming far more dangerous. Because of that, hunters have started avoiding them, and that's a serious issue. If nobody clears a dungeon, monsters spill out. That's a dungeon break. Hagen says he knows how bad that is. Still, there's no way this guy expects him to fix something this huge. Then he turns the page and immediately calls them crazy. They want him to gather intel on the Red Drake, the strongest level 7 monster in the country. Even all the top hunters together couldn't beat it. Hagen snaps, if the guild is the strongest, why send a delivery guy? Sanjin says the guild will help. They'll handle the easier parts of the dungeon, but they also need info on the Lizardman King, another major boss. Hagen is already shaking as he accuses Sanjin of offering 4 billion just to send him to his death, but Sanjin explains that's only the joining fee. If he gets the intel, he'll earn 4 billion more. Hagen freezes. They're doubling it. Instantly they shake hands and seal the deal. Scene change. An old man with a golden staff waits by a lake as a horse-headed man arrives. The elder says it's unlike him to be late. The orange-haired man says he ran into trouble on the way. He throws down a purple worm and says he found several below. They shouldn't be showing up in the Norse lands. The elder studies it and says he didn't expect them to spread this far already. The virus is moving faster than he thought. He knew the apocalypse prophecy had started, but not this quickly. The horse-headed man gets ready to leave. Odin sent him to Helheim because something is disturbing Valhalla. The elder tells him not to worry. Phrygia already sent a Greek hero who handled it. The horseman asks if it was Orpheus or Achilles, but the elder says no, just an ordinary man like him. That only annoys him more. Who is this ordinary man messing with his work? Another champion of the Greek gods? Meanwhile, Hagen is grinning like an idiot, because money really is amazing. The scene shifts to the gate of Chunlin. Hagen says he swore he'd never come near this place again, yet here he is. Lucio excitedly asks if he's been here before. He says no, but he spent a month somewhere even worse than this dungeon. She's impressed and says, no normal person could survive a place more dangerous than this for a month. He tells her she has no idea what his life has been like, but she might be about to see it. Then he pulls out his new 2.0 bike. With every upgrade, it gets bigger. This new version is built from rare materials and made for an elite divine courier. It's custom built and cuts 90% of the damage the rider takes. He says he had Hephaestus fuse it with something extra, and he can't believe how awesome it turned out. The old bike was good too, but he can't risk ending up paralyzed again like he did on the bridge. As he heads for the portal, he says he's not afraid anymore. Time to deal with that lizard monster. Inside the swamp, he speeds across mud and water with ease. The upgrade is so good the wheels barely slow down. Lucio, meanwhile, gets covered in slime. Then he suddenly stops, startling both of them. Right in the middle of the dungeon is a whole city, and not just any city, a rich, impressive one. He remembers the report saying the lizard man should be past this gate, but something feels off. Why is no one? Then a group of lizard men appears with spears. He gets annoyed, saying he basically jinxed himself by thinking out loud, but when the first lizard man checks the gate, there's nothing there. Hagen is hiding quietly with Lucio tucked inside his helmet. Lucio comments on the lizard men and he tells her the obvious doesn't need saying. She asks what the plan is, whether he's just going to smash everything like usual. But Hagen knows this time the mission isn't to kill anyone. He's just here to gather info, not risk his life like before. Find the king, learn what he can, and leave safely. At least that's the plan. Luckily, the guards pass by without noticing him. The monsters are smart, but their senses aren't as sharp as he expected. That makes him feel a lot safer. And even if things go bad, he figures he can just buy something from the store and escape. But then a new delivery request pops up in the middle of the dungeon. He's confused. Why now? It happens right as the alert warns that big enemies are heading his way. He forgot to turn off notifications at the worst possible time. He starts running, trying to understand what's happening, then suddenly stops. Lucio asks why, and he says she'll see in a second. Just as a huge lizard lunges with a spear, Hagen pulls out his phone. The creature freezes because the delivery request came directly from the Lizard King. Even the giant lizard looks stunned. The monsters and Lucio both have no clue what just happened. Hagen thinks it's weird getting a delivery from a beast instead of a god, but money is money. So he tells the lizard he's in a hurry and they might as well take him straight to the boss. The shaking lizards point past him. He almost tells them to stop pointing at his face, then notices the huge shadow behind him. The moment he feels that presence, he slowly turns around. The Lizard King looks absolutely wrecked. Hagen quickly notices the crown, but this creature looks nothing like the one in the report. The king hisses and flicks its tongue, but none of it makes any sense to him. Still, if anything can solve a problem, it's money, or in this case, a free translator. Lucio offers to translate for him. He asks if she really understands it, and she says yes. Lizard language is simple. The king hisses again, and Hagen asks what it said. Lucio explains that long ago, a disaster struck the Lizard Kingdom. A brutal invader destroyed the land. Children, eggs, adults, even the elders were slaughtered. The whole kingdom was ruined. Hagen already knows where this is going. They want him to fight that invader. He's quick enough to see how desperate they are. He came in as a hunter, but now these lizards look pitiful, all staring at him with pleading eyes. Help. Even Hagen wonders why these lizards were drawn so cute. He says he's no great warrior, but Lucio translates the king's offer, save the kingdom, and he'll get a treasure found only in the lizard realm. And just like that, Hagen wants in. He's way too curious about this treasure. Lucio says the king wants to take him to the basement and show it to him. With the Lizard King kneeling right in front of him, our boy stops caring what it is and says he'll kill the invader. A bit later in the basement, it turns out these lizards really are loaded. But hold on, the thief is back. That sneaky bandit looks around with a smug grin, saying this place is packed with good stuff. She can't decide whether to take the best items or clean the whole room out. And with only 10 seconds left before Hagen arrives, he and Lucio stop right in front of the door, and he can already tell that if it's this huge, something valuable is inside. Using the last bit of his strength, the king starts opening it. A golden light shines through, and the door swings wide. Hagen just stares, mouth open, thinking the room might be empty, but nope, it's still full of treasure, and the thief is hiding inside. He figures there's about as much treasure here as in an heir's warehouse. Lucio explains the king took all of this from humans who invaded and failed. The king looks proud, but Hagen isn't impressed. He is about to comment on the treasure when something catches his eye. A person with coins piled on their arm. As the coins hit the floor with a clink, she casually greets him. Yo, what's up, my boy? The second she shows herself, the cute Yoshi vibes vanish and the lizards turn furious. Lucio says they're yelling to catch the bandit, and yeah, they already did. This useless thief is completely pinned down. Hagen wants to know how she got in here again. Meanwhile, Suin is just as confused. She got a mission to steal whatever was here, but somehow this guy showed up again. She looks at him and asks, Junior, don't you remember me? Then she says they both work jobs for Hermes, so he should explain that to the lizards. Lucio quickly adds that the king wants to know if Hagen really works with her. Terrified he'll lose the reward, the poor guy nearly cries. He swears he went to an all-boys school and never even had a female senior. So just because she's about to lose money, he walks over and tells her to quit messing around. Idiot, I don't work for Hermes. That leaves her confused. If he's been doing Hermes's jobs, why didn't Hermes tell the boy? Sawney then says that if he helps her escape, she'll do whatever he wants. And yeah, he's definitely thinking about how to turn that into money. He thinks it over while Lucio warns him not to trust a bandit, which is fair. After a short pause, he says, all right. With a nasty grin, he says he'll name his price, but she has to swear by the River of V. She says swearing on the River of Styx is crazy, but he just says if she won't do it, he'll let the big lizards cut her throat and leave her to rot there. Seeing the blade at her neck, she gives in and swears on the River of Styx. If he helps Su Yin Choi get out, she'll do whatever he asks. He says good, then tells Lucio to explain everything to the king. Not long after, she's freed and relieved. She wasn't executed. She thanks Junior for helping, but he cuts her off. First, I'm not your junior. And second, be ready for whatever I ask. Of course, her mind goes somewhere weird right away, already imagining some very personal favor. But our boy isn't asking for that. Nope, he's got other plans. Right then, the system window pops up with a new mission. Defeat the Crimson Invader of this kingdom, and save the Lizard Realm. Time limit 3 hours. Reward the kingdom's treasure. He's stunned. 3 hours is insanely short. Last time he had 50, and even that felt risky. He turns to Lucio and says they need to move now. No time to waste. He bolts off at full speed while Junior tries to tell them to wait. Standing by the king, she grumbles to herself that the bastard is so rude he didn't even let her finish. Strangely, the king is still awake beside her. Meanwhile, Hagen is already racing ahead on his bike. It's 30 kilometers away. The king really gave him almost no time. And getting there isn't even the biggest problem. Winning is. Lucio tells him to slow down, but he says that's not happening. Then Su Yin suddenly appears in front of him and says it looks like he's got a problem. He almost jumps out of his skin, slams the brakes and stops beside her. Already annoyed, he asks why she's following him after he told her to stay put. The troublemaker just winks and says she couldn't leave him struggling after he saved her. He tells her to stay out of it. No matter what, he's still collecting that favor. But she smirks and says he won't be in such a rush once he hears her out, because she knows exactly what monster he's after, the Red Drake. That makes him remember someone already warned him this thing was terrifying, and he was only supposed to gather info. Yeah, he really should have guessed. He starts wondering if Seligin already knew the Drake and the king were connected, since he asked him to investigate both. Looking at Seligin, it's obvious she doesn't want to risk her life fighting something like that, but she still needs him to trust her if she wants a cut of the lizard treasure. So she says she knows the fastest path to the Red Drake and can guide him. Hagen fires back, I thought stealing was your only skill, so how are you helping me? She just smirks and tells him never to underestimate someone he barely knows. She'll help him find the monster, but she never promised to fight it. A good thief, she says, always has tricks to escape trouble. A little later, he's speeding through a crimson forest, this time with a woman riding on the back of his bike. Soon they spot a huge red lizard, and she points straight at it. That's the Red Drake. Now it makes sense why it was called a terrifying monster. Lucio asks if they can even beat it. He just says they'll find out, shifts into battle mode, and activates his helmet. Then he launches himself at the creature with a huge leap, ready to drop a punch. Estimated difficulty level 7 boss. And Hagen slams his fist right into its head. Honestly, it looked like one of those hits that should end the fight instantly. But no, the thing gets back up roaring, and our boy just grins. Alright then, time to beat this monster down. He lands another blow, this time from high in the air, and the blast spreads out below. From the ground, Su Yin covers her face in shock. How is he even doing this? She'd been chosen by Hermes and faced dangers most hunters couldn't imagine, but even she couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. This guy is out here throwing kicks and punches like Kid Lee. The Red Drake stumbles and crashes backward. Our madman is moving like Master Lee, and she knows the Hunter Association ranked this thing near level 7. Out of all dungeon monsters seen around the world, it ranks in the top 10. She knows he was chosen by Hermes too, but that alone can't explain this kind of strength. Most top hunters have at least 15 years of experience, and most were chosen by powerful gods. But she's sure Hagen got his powers less than a year ago. So how is he stronger than hunters who've trained way longer? And from how the Red Drake is moving, she can tell something isn't right. Then she gets it. The Drake is searching for him while he's above it, hidden by his helmet and beating it down without being seen. That's when she finally realizes he's using a cannon. The monster roars again and swings down with a crushing blow. The hit smashes straight into the ground, but it doesn't do anything. Hagen, still in the air, says the monster is just swinging blindly now because it can't find him. But monsters only exist for one reason, to drop money, and get punched in the head. The whole ground erupts. After a while, there's barely anything left of the poor thing. Actually, not a little while, a long while. Hagen admits he's lost count of how many punches he's thrown. But somehow the big lizard is still alive. So yeah, this fight isn't as easy as it looked. Worse, his clothing effect is about to wear off. His helmet can still hide him, but without that boost he won't hit nearly as hard. So there's only one move left, go all in. He immediately summons the big boy to end this once and for all. He leaps at the giant lizard and yells for it to die. The beast notices something coming. At first it looks like a random hit, but no, the bastard dodged. The real question is how. It still can't see him. Then he figures it out. The force of his swing briefly ruined the helmet's hiding effect, and now the Red Drake comes down with a crushing attack. The blast looks like a clean hit, and Su Yin can't believe he didn't dodge. Everything had been going fine, so why would he take that hit? Lucio calls Su Yin a foolish human and warns that jumping in now would only slow him down. So she stays back and watches, while Lucio wonders who this nymph is and why she's hiding in the bushes. Still, Lucio trusts Hyjin. He survived one deadly mess after another. He always finds a way out. That's why so many gods believe in him. No way Hyjin loses to a monster like this. Suvin snorts. Nice thought, but that kid just ate a direct hit. Nobody lives through that. Then she notices something strange. He's climbing. He mutters that the lizard feels soft and she can't figure out why he's hanging onto the boss. She's even more confused when Lucio starts cheering him on. His clothing effect had only 57 seconds left. While climbing, he spots something. A star-shaped crystal under the beast's throat near its neck. Lucio instantly warns him that's its reverse scale. He realizes it's probably the weak spot and opens the shop. To kill this thing, he needs something overwhelming. He asks Lucio if the red drake is a dragon. She isn't sure, but says a reverse scale usually means it's a rare kind of wyvern. Right then, he buys something from the shop. If it's that close to a dragon, that's enough for him. His points drop from 1.3 million to 1 million. No clue what it does yet, but the sword cost a fortune. He bought Sigurd's sword, Dragonbane, and he's still stuck on the monster's chest like an idiot. Suvin has no idea how he suddenly summoned that weapon. But MC knows one thing. With this blade, he can end it by hitting the weak spot. He goes in, then the monster's eyes flare up and flames cover its body. Going by his face, this is bad. He can't understand why fire is suddenly bursting out of the creature. The blast throws him back. He wonders if this is its final move. Then he slams into the ground. This is bad. He can't reach the reverse scale while it's like this. Lucio tells him to be careful, and Suvin runs over yelling for him to get away. Phase 2 is far more dangerous. She says they'll have to work together, but he refuses. She can't hide her presence, so she should stay back. Of course, she already has another trick ready. She smirks. Well then, just sit back and watch what I'm about to. Then she throws a potion. Demeter's Tear, an ice potion from the goddess of nature and earth. Anything it touches gets frozen, and in a second, the Drake King is locked in ice. The monster turns into a giant popsicle. She tells him now's his chance to finish it. He asks why she didn't use that sooner, and she says she was waiting for its second phase. She did it on purpose, and the two start bickering right there. Lucio cuts them off and tells him to move before it wakes up. Too late, the creature wakes up. Suvin says she never thought anything could break out of Demeter's prison that fast. Worse, the flames cover its body again, and MC only has 20 seconds left on his suit. Suvin says this is her last shot to make an opening for him. She throws her final potion, another Tear of Demeter, this one plant-based. It touches the creature and melts instantly. Out of options, he charges in with the suit shutting down. He leaps straight at the scale and swings, sending out a huge purple slash. It hits the level 7 boss right in its weak spot and cuts its head off. He didn't just break the scale, he killed the Red Drake. Back at Songjin's guild, Doyen reports that the research on nearby dungeons is finished. The guild leader thanks him and tells him to rest and get ready. But Doyen says he heard something in the elevator and asks if it's true. Did the association really hand them a time bomb to deal with? The leader says yes, the Lizardman dungeon, and they still don't know how to handle it. Then he reveals they already got word that Hyjin cleared it 2 days ago. When the call came in, he thought Hyjin meant the investigation was finished. But no, that wasn't it. He killed the Red Drake. It wasn't the plan, it just happened. Songjin thought he was joking. So he sent a team to check, and it was true. He never expected the kid to do something this crazy, and now he has no idea how to explain it to the association. Everyone's relieved the monster that could have destroyed the city is dead, but its sudden death creates a whole new problem. Hyjin's contract says his identity can never be revealed, yet someone has to get credit for killing a level 7 monster, and that person will draw a lot of attention. Doyen gets excited, saying that delivery guy is a monster himself. At this rate, he could beat most top hunters. Songjin sighs that he may have to raise him to A rank, and Doyen instantly backs off. Never mind, no need to promote him. Let's just keep this quiet. Now Songjin wonders if he beat the Red Drake, what happened to the Lizard King information? Then we're back at the castle. Yoshi runs in, furious with emotion, ready to praise their savior. Lucio says they're thanking him for saving them, and he tells her she doesn't need to translate the obvious. He takes the king's hand and says he only did what had to be done. There's no need to bow. Too bad the king doesn't know what he really wants as a reward. And sure enough, the king looks sick before bringing out a huge treasure chest. They open it, and both of them are impressed. Inside is a tiny bag. The king asks if he likes it, while MC just stares. He's ready to complain. He risked his life for this little sack, but Lucio stops him. This isn't just any bag, and he asks what it is. She explains that it's basically an inventory bag. It can hold endless items. Then the story jumps to the next day. The Yoshi people all gather to say goodbye. Early that morning, he gets a call from Songjin with news. The Inosin City gate disappeared. Most likely it only existed as an escape route for the Lizardmen if the Red Drake attacked. Now that the kingdom is safe, they don't need it, so the portal closed on its own. That makes him realize there may be ways to shut gates without killing everything inside. Maybe humans and monsters don't always have to fight, or maybe that's just wishful thinking. While he's thinking, Suvin congratulates him and says the reward he got should be really useful. He agrees, then asks if she's satisfied. She used rare potions and got nothing back. She says she'd never join something without gaining something from it. Then he notices she's hiding something on her arm. Little thief. He asks what it is and where she got it. She doesn't answer. She just walks off, saying she enjoyed their time together, and thanks to him, she got exactly what she wanted. Just like that, she's gone. And he thinks a thief is always a thief. But that's not his problem anymore. It's time to go home. Lucio asks if they're leaving now, and he says not yet. First, he has to collect what he's owed. Here comes 8 billion. Stangen says they'll study the Red Drake's whole body and send him part of the profits. He'd forgotten monster corpses are worth a ton. He's so used to doing deliveries that he forgot this can be the best part of a dungeon. From now on, maybe he shouldn't leave any monster behind. Lucio asks why he's so excited. Then she smells chicken. He thought she didn't want any earlier, but now she's desperate to eat. He gives her a soda, but she ignores it and burns her tongue anyway. He wonders if Lucio died of hunger in a past life. While eating yesterday's chicken, he says good chicken is still amazing, even the next day. Not long ago, he was stuck eating the cheap store stuff, and it always gave him heartburn. Now he can drop 30 bucks on chicken without caring. Having money is nice. Lucio even says she'll share a chicken bone with him. Right then, a new order comes in, or rather, a delivery request. The second Lucio notices it, she starts cramming chicken into her mouth. She already knows another terrible trip is coming, but he's not rushing anymore. Breakfast comes first, then the job. With 10 billion in the bank, he can slow down a little. What isn't calm is the Greek realm. The city is in flames, and bodies are everywhere. One soldier says they can't back down now. They charge the beast with golden eyes in the smoke, while another reports to the king that everyone is fighting with all they have, and it's still nowhere near enough to stop its strength. The king asks about the summoned hero, but the answer is bad. They sent for him, yet he won't arrive for 3 days. The king says that's far too late. By then, the palace will be gone. Then the whole place starts to shake. An explosion tears through the fortress wall, and the Minotaur appears before the trembling king as he cries out to Poseidon, asking if he has abandoned them. Back at Hephaestus' house, the boy wonders why he isn't there, and Lucio guesses they came late. He blames Lucio. She insisted on making chicken thighs in the air fryer before leaving. Then he realizes his phone has been ringing non-stop, so this might actually be urgent. Just then, Lucio glances behind her, and Hephaestus walks up looking angry. So he finally made it. The boy stiffens and awkwardly asks if they need a delivery. The protagonist reminds him this is urgent, and says the job won't be easy. They'll talk about it inside. The idiot just nods. Once they're seated, the dwarf admits this is a huge problem, and he barely knows where to begin. The MC tells him to start anywhere. He'll try to follow, but he's more nervous than ever. MC almost never hesitates, so this has to be dangerous. Then Hephaestus brings up his talk with Freya. The boy remembers the story about the realms being split into 7 parts. The dwarf says he hoped the Olympians and the others could handle this, but things have only gotten worse. The invaders have already reached places even the gods can't enter. At the Olympian Council, they learned more. These creatures aren't only invading myth realms, they've crossed into the human world too. The source of this disaster wasn't limited to the higher realms. It spread to the lower worlds, and even the underworld. The biggest problem is that, because of causality, the gods can't interfere in the human world. The only good news is the creatures still can't move completely freely. For now, they just plant seeds, wait for them to grow, and see what happens. That makes the boy stop him. He says he's totally lost. What seeds, what gods? What is he even talking about? His friend asks if he truly doesn't know, and when the boy starts to answer, everything suddenly cuts out. He says he didn't catch that, and asks him to repeat it. But Lucio says she only heard a weird static sound. Hephaestus realizes the laws of the gods won't let him tell the boy directly. Long ago, the gods worked together to seal this existence, so even saying its name is forbidden. He tells the boy not to stress about it. He'll learn in time, and today's job is tied to all of this. He explains they were supposed to receive a tribute from someone named Cretan, but it still hasn't arrived. He's lucky his father hasn't heard yet since he's busy with the council. If Poseidon found out, he'd be furious. So the boy needs to find out what happened before that. Naturally, he'll be paid well. The MC sums it up. Something was due, it didn't come, and they don't want Poseidon finding out. Then he asks, if that's all, why is everyone acting like it's so urgent? Lucio says, if it were any other king, it wouldn't matter, but this is King Minos. To him, being late is unacceptable. He once threw his whole land into chaos by defying Poseidon and refusing to sacrifice a white bull. That led to the famous labyrinth, a deadly place that held the Minotaur. He still doesn't see what lateness has to do with the Minotaur, but figures he'll find out soon enough, as he heads out. Or not quite. His water-walking buff starts running out, and he has to stop on a tiny island before he drowns. Lucio tells him to be more careful, and he says he didn't know it was this far. He decides to buy something from the shop to help cross the water, but everything is absurdly expensive. Theseus' boat for 30 million. The Argonauts' ship for 50 million. Noah's Ark for 100 million. No chance. Lucio asks what the plan is, and he says they'll search around first. Maybe something useful is nearby. He pulls out the infinite bag and says this is exactly why he brought it. He had already packed it with all kinds of useful stuff, just not a boat, apparently. Instead, he ends up using binoculars to scout. That's when he spots a temple in the distance with smoke rising from it. He thinks it could be a stop on the way to Cretan Island. Then a soldier suddenly appears in view, demanding to know who they are. A bunch more show up too, asking why they've entered this land. The boy tells them to relax, he just needs a boat to reach Cretan Island. One soldier gets mad and asks if he even knows where he is, but then someone stops him with a hand on his shoulder and says he'd like to hear the boy out first. The MC thinks the guy looks suspicious, then realizes it's actually Theseus, another famous legend. This time the boy seems to know who he is, and Lucio quickly adds that Theseus is the hero who defeated the Minotaur. He was also the only one to escape the labyrinth, later became king of Athens, and went on many adventures with the gods' help. Theseus says that outfit gives him away. He must be the divine delivery man he's heard about. Seeing the boy react, he knows he guessed right. Not many people dress like that. He says he heard of him from Jason of the Argo Company, and the boy remembers that's the captain who asked him to deal with the sirens. Still confused about this rising hero talk, he asks what people are saying. Theseus says everyone knows about him now. He invaded the Siren's nest, killed the Hydra, healed Chiron's leg, and even delivered something to the Norse gods in Helheim. He's building a real name for himself across the divine realms, and he can't help looking a little pleased. Lucio asks what people are saying about her. Theseus says he's heard the divine delivery man has some kind of assistant. That crushes her. While she melts down, Theseus hands the boy a paper and says it'll help him reach Cretan Island. The boy checks it and realizes what it is. It's the legendary map, but Lucio notices it also says the threat has returned. So the boy asks if Theseus didn't kill the Minotaur long ago. He explains that he never killed it, he sealed it inside the labyrinth. The problem is, he has no idea how that seal broke, so tomorrow morning, he's going to Cretan to end it for real. Then he asks if the divine delivery man wants to come. The boy hesitates since he wasn't planning to fight anything this time, but then agrees. Things don't always go the way you want. Meanwhile, the king is trapped in the Minotaur's grasp, and one thing is clear, the beast is furious. The next morning, the boy tries waking Lucio, who keeps asking for 5 more minutes. He tells her to get up already, because the boat is leaving, and they don't have time to mess around. Lucio sadly begs him to stop being so harsh. He looks outside, hoping Theseus managed to gather enough people to help. The day before, Theseus told him to rest well while he went to recruit as many allies as he could. That was when the boy asked how he stopped the Minotaur the first time. Theseus said he had help from Princess Ariadne of Cretan. The Minotaur was a monstrous curse that brought ruin to King Minos and his whole family, a punishment for defying a god. The strange part is that monster was supposed to be sealed deep in the labyrinth forever. So how did it come back strong enough to wreck Cretan all over again? Theseus says that's what he wants to learn. They have to move fast before everything is lost, and this time he wants to finish it for good. Our boy asks why he's trying to gather so many people instead of leaving right away. Theseus says he thought the same thing, until he heard something from Hercules, but he never explains what it was, leaving our boy wondering. He starts thinking it might be tied to what Hephaestus said back at the shop. Fighting monsters was already bad enough, but what really bothered him was the feeling that he was being pulled into something way bigger than he should be. Lucio says she's all set for the adventure, and Hagen realizes she has no clue how dangerous this really is. At the docks, soldiers load crates onto the ship as our boy calls out to Theseus. The hero jokes that he thought he'd have to wake him up, since Lucio keeps saying Hagen sleeps too much and is lazy. He tells them it's fine and to get aboard they can meet the others later. Our boy is blown away by how huge the ship is. It really looks like something out of an anime, and Theseus proudly says that makes sense. It once belonged to a legendary hero. Our boy asks what Lucio just said, but she insists it wasn't her this time. Now he's confused, because that annoying high-pitched comment sounded exactly like something a nymph would say. Then someone says that's just how a country nymph reacts, and our boy turns around to see what is basically Lucio 2.0. The guy is like a short version of Lucio, and somehow she knows him. She calls him Luvor and says it's been a long time. Lucio gets all happy to see him and says she never thought he'd be helping Theseus, but Luvor pushes her face back and tells her not to get close. They're not friends. This is only the second male nymph our boy has seen, and now he realizes Lucio wasn't lying when she said she was tall. Then someone asks why Luvor is still standing around. It's Theseus, telling him to take the guests to their rooms. Our boy apologizes and says it's not Luvor's fault. He has a troublesome nymph too. Theseus brushes it off and tells them to get ready, because they're leaving now. Our boy asks Luvor to show them the rooms, but the poor guy is still recovering after Lucio roasted him and smacked him. Inside the ship, they find out their room is actually pretty nice. Luvor thanks our boy for not telling Theseus that he was fighting, and he says, no problem. If he's friends with Lucio, then they're friends too. And just like that, the two start arguing again. Luvor just sighs, gives in, and leaves looking a little down. Our boy thinks that's odd, and asks if Theseus treats him badly. Lucio explains that nymphs are basically treated like servants. It's not that Theseus is cruel, it's that our boy treats her differently. Hagen figures that's because in old myths, slavery was seen as normal. For someone from the modern world, that makes zero sense. Soon the ship sets sail, and as they head out, Theseus quietly says he never thought he'd enter that labyrinth again. When they reach the city, the soldiers get off the ship, and our boy is stunned. The whole place is destroyed. More rubble than city. Worse, the dead all look like they went through something horrible. Theseus says this has to be the Minotaur's work, and for now they need to search for survivors. Lovor points ahead and says at least one building is still standing. It's the Temple of Poseidon. Since this whole disaster was said to be the god's punishment, the beast probably didn't dare go near it. They head toward the temple, but there's already a trail of blood leading to the doors. Theseus opens it, thinking the Minotaur might be inside, but instead he finds a crowd of desperate survivors. The people get emotional when they see Theseus, and he's relieved that some of them made it. The survivors are quickly escorted back to the boats, and our boy feels a little better, knowing not everyone was lost. Then an old man comes up behind him and says he has important news. The Minotaur took King Minos hostage. Our boy asks where it took the king. And come on, obviously to the deepest part of the labyrinth. And the real problem is, the longer they wait, the harder